By the year 2100, society had peaked, and research into immortality had finally hit a massive breakthrough point. All right, you and I are diving into a world where a game literally becomes your entire life. This game used real movements, making its popularity explode, and the company's value reach absolutely insane new heights overnight. By 2039, the game was everything. But suddenly, our main character finds his high-level account has been completely wiped out. Furious and confused, Xin Fang is forced to sign a termination contract. The betrayal is real, and he has zero clue why. He spent years building his guild and making this company rich, only to be tossed out like trash without any warning. Because he refused a shady merger, his guild, Shadow, decided he was a liability and threw him under the bus. They offered him $5 million and a mansion to keep him quiet. They thought he would just roll over and accept. With no other choice, Fang falls into a dark depression, drowning his sorrows in a bottle after losing his entire life. Treated like a common beggar, he realizes his worth isn't tied to them. He vows to rebuild, even if it means starting from zero. Just then, the alcohol hits him. His head spins, and everything goes dark. He has no idea what is about to happen. His phone rings. It is his old friend Blackie, calling way earlier than usual. Fang picks up, confused and dazed. But wait for it. This is the moment where reality starts to glitch out, and everything he knows is about to change. Realizing something is off, he drops his phone in shock. He is shaken to his core by a feeling he cannot explain. He rushes to a mirror as Blackie keeps talking, worried that his friend finally went overboard with the drinking last night. Fang stares. He looks much younger. He checks his phone and the screen confirms the year. It is 2029. He has actually traveled 10 years into the past. It is a literal miracle, a second chance at life he never expected to get. Those who betrayed him will finally face his cold revenge. Meanwhile, Blackie is still blabbering about signing up for the guild. Blackie is shocked when Fang refuses to join Shadow's recruitment. Instead, Fang announces he is going to build his own legendary guild. Fang knows Blackie becomes an elite manager later. He only joined Shadow before to help his family survive their debt. Blackie points out they have zero cash. The market is too tough for two kids with no backing to break into. You and I both know that starting from zero is the hardest part, but Fang has a plan. Blackie argues their current money won't even buy basic gear. They are broke, and the game is about to go live. Fang remembers a student discount that lets them test the gear for 10 days. It is their only shot to get ahead. 10 days is nothing, but Fang is confident. He promises to handle the money as long as they can just get inside. He buys some essential market items to prepare. Back in his room, he gears up to enter God's domain once again. Fang connects to the server successfully. He is back. The game that ruined and made him is right in front of him. It has been an eternity since he saw this old login screen. The nostalgia hits hard as he navigates the retro interface. A harpy-like creature descends from the digital sky. She is Gabriel, the navigation angel sent to guide him through character creation. She presents the 4 main classes and 12 unique professions. Fang chooses to be a swordsman, sticking to his deadly roots. He keeps his old name, Yifang, but tweaks his appearance. He cannot have anyone from his past life recognizing him yet. In the kingdom of Starman, he chooses Wither River. It is a city with massive growth potential that most players will ignore. This move keeps him away from the big guilds early on. Once he picks the city, he is instantly teleported into the world. He spawns in Red Leaf. It looks exactly like he remembers. The smells, the sights, it is a perfect digital recreation. Players are already flooding the streets, talking to non-player characters, and trying to figure out how this world actually works. Fang looks at his 4 attribute points. Most physical damage dealers dump everything into strength, but Fang knows better this time. In his past life, strength was king. Now, he realizes that agility is the true secret to breaking the game early. Focusing on agility boosts his speed and attack frequency. It is a pro strat that the rest of the world won't discover for years. Meanwhile, Blackie is a curse specialist over in Moonfall City. They are miles apart, and Blackie is desperate to level up. Fang tells him to chill. Grinding mobs isn't the way to make bank. They need a smarter approach to dominate the market. He reveals the existence of unique quests. Blackie loses it with excitement. These are the game changers they really need. Fang heads to a different town, filled with shady characters. He is hunting for a specific hidden quest found in Red Leaf. He invites Blackie to join, but the boy is focused on gaining raw power. He is curious how Fang knows so much. Blackie assumes Fang met a beta tester or someone with insider info. He cannot fathom that his friend has lived this already. And that is where the journey begins. Trust me, you and I are in for one hell of a ride. You and I are going to see how a pro gamer levels up way faster than anyone else in this new world. Arthur asks a beggar if he needs help. The man begs for bread, starving for days, but Arthur refuses a free handout. He offers aid only for the right price, knowing rare quests only trigger after a very specific series of dialogue choices. The Wanderer asks him to assassinate the mayor of Rosegate. Suddenly, a glowing system notification appears right before his eyes. The prompt requires confirmation to accept. Arthur knows there is no option to turn back once he enters the town. Inside the Grand Town Hall, crowds are waiting for an audience. Mayor Cross is level 15 with some seriously deadly stats. Arthur is far too weak to win a fair fight, but he has exploited this game before and knows exactly what to do. He tosses a half-eaten apple directly at the mayor. Instantly, his reputation with the powerful noble drops to hostile levels. The mayor lunges at him with murderous intent, but Arthur knows the only person dying today is the corrupt official. 15 minutes earlier, he was preparing his plan. He stood before the hall, realizing this was the only way forward. The queue for beginner tasks was massive. Arthur silently apologized for the absolute chaos he was about to cause everyone. A random player tells him to get in line or get thrashed. Arthur explains he is not there for basic quests. He advises the stranger to leave, calling the wait a waste of time, but the man thinks he is being played. Seeing others leave with tasks, the player feels lied to. Arthur insists that hunting monsters is the better way to grow. Competition in the wild is fierce, so the stranger hopes for a collection task that carries much less risk for him. Arthur points out that isolated areas are ignored because monsters spawn slowly, making them perfect for a lone hunter. Now pay attention, because Arthur is about to pull a fast one on this desperate player for some gold. He charges 20 coins for the advice. The player protests, since every new beginner starts with only 10 copper coins. Arthur agrees to half now and half later. Finally, he has enough coin to buy the secret weapon for his mission. He buys 10 ripe tomatoes for 1 copper each. It seems like a massive, pointless expense for a low-level player. 2 girls nearby start laughing, convinced that anyone buying fruit instead of gear must be a total gaming novice. As the line at the hall grows, the mayor continues his boring paperwork. Arthur walks inside with a very calm expression. He hurls the first tomato right at the mayor. Following up with insults, he calls the noble a bald, stinky fraud. He screams that the man does not deserve his title. The mayor is already fuming from the fruit and the disrespect. It does not take long for another tomato to find its mark. Arthur is relentless, mocking him in front of everyone. He empties his entire bag of tomatoes on the official. The other players are stunned by this incredibly stupid behavior. You and I both know Arthur has a plan, but watching this mayor lose it is absolutely hilarious. The hall echoes with a roar of pure hatred. Marked as a hostile threat, the mayor charges at Arthur instantly. Arthur barely blocks the heavy strike. It is nearly fatal, but the crowd is impressed he survived with a basic sword. Enraged, the mayor begins to transform, his skin ripping as he reveals his true, hidden form as a monstrous werewolf. The crowd panics upon seeing the mayor's secret identity. The beast lunges forward, determined to silence Arthur for good. The city guards react immediately. In this kingdom, A hostile monster inside the town walls is a target for everyone. If Arthur had attacked first, the guards would have killed him. By provoking the beast, the guards handle the dirty work. A brutal execution begins. The creature stands no chance against the armored guards, and the fight is incredibly one-sided. Other players jump into the fray, hoping to steal some experience points from the dying beast while the guards strike. The werewolf is overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers. Finally, a fatal blow is dealt and the monster falls. The players are confused. There is no loot on the body, and nobody received a single point of experience. Only the guy who threw the tomatoes knows why, but Arthur has already vanished from the scene of the crime. He carries the mayor's seal to the wanderer. The man is overjoyed, his long wait for justice finally coming to an end. With the deed done, the man hands over a heavy reward. Arthur is shocked by the sheer size of the bounty. Completing a high-level mission at level 0 boosted his rewards. Now, he wonders what lies inside this mysterious box. A blinding blue light erupts as he pries the lid open. Inside lies a rare artifact known as the gravity ring. For 30 seconds, it makes his body light as a feather. It only takes 5 minutes to recharge its magic. Arthur is thrilled to get such a powerful item so early. He spends his points to push his agility even higher. And that is how you play the system. Trust me, this is only the beginning of his legend. All right, you and I are about to watch Alaric face the ultimate trial. To get stronger, he heads to the gauntlet. This arena is brutal, slashing your stats down to 10 points. It is almost impossible, and every failed attempt costs a fortune. Not one knight has survived the imps yet. One desperate fighter claims he nearly made it, begging his comrade for spare coins. But they are tapped out. There is nothing left. Now keep an eye on Julian. He will be a legendary assassin one day. His start in this kingdom is absolutely miserable. That is when he spots Alaric nearby, standing calm while everyone else is panicking. Julian introduces himself as a captain of the Shadow Guild. He tries to borrow 5 copper crowns, promising 20 back by tomorrow. Alaric agrees to the loan. Julian thinks his guild reputation has the rookie shaking, but he is completely wrong about that. Alaric does not flinch. Instead, he demands 50 copper crowns as repayment for the simple favor. Julian's men are furious at this rookie's audacity. Even so, he accepts the terms. Alaric adds him as a contact to collect later. He walks away grinning, thrilled to have made such an easy profit. Making money off desperate high rankers is the way to go. His squires wonder if they should even pay it back. They suggest just ghosting the guy and canceling the whole deal. But Julian refuses to tarnish his noble name over some coins. He is close to beating the trial and believes today is his. His men cheer him on, though they are skeptical. They head back to the gauntlet entrance for one last desperate attempt. That is when they see him. The same rookie who just lent them the money is standing there, ready to take the trial. They do not expect him to last 10 seconds, especially since these imps change their attack patterns at the very last moment. Alaric teleports into the arena. A loud crack echoes, signaling the start. This is it, life or death in the gauntlet. He sprints forward as the imps open fire. Alaric charges straight at the projectiles while the monsters scramble to adjust their aim. He weaves through the shots with terrifying grace. The crowd watching from the sidelines is absolutely stunned by his performance. Julian wonders if this guy is some world-class athlete or a hidden master. He is moving like a seasoned veteran out there. Now, here is the part you and I need to watch closely. Even a pro like Julian is questioning his skills. But the real nightmare starts at the 15-meter mark. Alaric hits the distance, and the imps are already locked and loaded. The creatures launch their secondary attack pattern. A hail of lead flies through the air, aimed directly at his head. Time for Alaric to show what he is really made of. He draws his blade in a blur of steel while charging forward. The players outside start laughing. They think he is trying to block bullets with a sword. Then, their jaws hit the floor. Because that is exactly what he does. Alaric presses on, and now everyone is wondering if this guy is even human anymore. With that blade in his hand, he is untouchable. He hits the 25-meter mark, seconds away from clearing the entire trial. Julian is fuming. The game just launched, yet here is a rookie predicting trajectories and deflecting shots like it is nothing. His control is insane. Blocking projectiles with a starting sword. You do not see that kind of mechanical skill every day. Julian shouts a warning. The imps are pulling out the heavy gear now, weapons with a firing rate that will shred anything. You and I both know that volume of fire is a death sentence. The heavy artillery starts roaring. It is pure chaos. An imp spots him closing in. Alaric does not blink, keeping his defense perfect with nothing but a rusted iron blade. A massive explosion rocks the arena. Alaric leaps through the smoke and debris, pushing forward with impossible speed and focus. He reaches the finish line in just 14 seconds. The lead imp actually congratulates him for beating the legendary trial. He is the first to clear it at bronze rank. His reward: 1 silver crown and a high-level swordsmanship skill book. The crowd is going wild. He just unlocked Thunder Flash, a technique that hits 3 times with massive scaling damage. It is an S-tier skill for the early game. Most swordsmen only hit 1 target, but this has some serious area reach. It is a total game changer. Behind him, Julian and his men are standing there with their mouths wide open in disbelief. Alaric simply waves them off. He tells Julian he will be back tomorrow to collect that 50-crown debt he owes. The henchmen think about jumping him for the loot. Julian snaps at them. You do not make enemies with a monster. With his new technique learned, it is time to grind. Meanwhile, other players are just starting to gather for forest raids. Alaric spends 20 crowns on an explosive fire fruit. He needs to hunt some higher-level beasts to stack up more gold. The forest is recommended for level 1s, but he is aiming higher. He watches a standard party prepping nearby for a hunt. They have got 2 tanks, a mage and a cleric. It is safer to share the experience, but Alaric prefers a different path. Dying here means losing levels and gear, so they are cautious. Suddenly, one of them gets cocky and starts trash-talking Alaric. He warns him to stay away. Alaric just walks off. We both know those guys are about to regret that attitude. All right, you and I are about to watch Alaric avoid the high-stat bears that always call for their mothers. Spotting a lone forest wolf, he found his mark. One was easy, but if the den was nearby, he'd be in serious trouble. He went a strike, but the earth suddenly crumbled beneath his boots, sending him tumbling down into the dark. Now watch this. Alaric just fell into the entrance of a den, surrounded by glowing eyes in the shadows. He sprinted desperately, knowing he couldn't afford to get cornered by a pack of hungry wolves in these tunnels. The beasts were relentless. To survive, he tapped into his enchanted ring, warping the laws of gravity to stay mobile. Lighter than air, he vaulted across the cavern at blistering speed, finally putting distance between himself and the pack. Escaping the den, he reached the frozen peaks where a legendary treasure chest lay hidden within the mountain stone. Searching the area, he found a massive waterfall, the exact location where his prize was waiting for its new master. Normal knights would need 40 points of agility for the 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 skill, but he used his magical ring instead. With a few gravity-defying leaps, he reached the summit, only to be greeted by a massive hand of solid rock. A mountain golem rumbled to life, fully emerging from the earth just as our hero had predicted it would. Alaric didn't flinch. This Tier 5 behemoth was exactly what he came for, and he already had the perfect counter. Reaching into his pack, he drew a rare blast sphere designed specifically to shatter the defenses of such stone giants. He evaded the first heavy swing, launching the fruit into the air as a blinding aura began to paralyze the golem. The beast froze, completely immobile. This was the opening he needed to end this fight before it even truly began. His blade became a blur, carving through granite and ancient stone with surgical precision as the giant stood helpless there. It was the perfect training exercise to hone his swordplay, while keeping himself entirely out of harm's way for now. Thinking ahead, he nimbly dodged a desperate counterattack as the creature tried to reclaim its footing in the dirt. Using his superior speed to gain ground, he delivered one final, crushing blow to the golem's crumbling stone heart. Victory secured. His reward was a simple enchanted tunic, but his journey took a strange turn as silence fell. Startled by the sound of screeching bats, he looked up to find a hidden cavern carved deep into the cliffs. The cave was a graveyard of bones and glowing crystals. Resting at its center was a massive Tier 6 titan. This wasn't just any monster, it was an elite guardian. Alaric realized he was in for the fight of his life. He struck first, but the monster roared in fury, calling him a mere insect as it prepared to retaliate fiercely. The floor shattered under the titan's fist. With its massive health pool, Alaric knew this would be a long, brutal war. The duel raged on. The creature was enraged, but Alaric's movements were like water, flowing safely around every heavy strike. With a burst of speed, he slipped behind the giant, unleashing a flurry of steel against its thick, rocky hide. Each hit barely scratched it. He had to back off quickly to avoid being crushed by the monster's sudden reversal. The elite's wounds closed fast. He'd been reckless. These monsters recover 2% of their health every 5 seconds. You and I both know basic attacks won't work here. He needs his ultimate skill to bring this titan down. Leaping onto the giant's arm, he began a new assault, finally seeing the monster's resolve begin to crack under pressure. Furious, the boss unleashed a terrifying wave of energy, jumping high into the air to crush Alaric into the dust. He hadn't expected the dungeon's master to use such a devastating ultimate move so early in their brutal confrontation. Rocks rained down, but Alaric's blade sang through the air, parrying the debris as he searched for a safe harbor. Vanishing into the smoke, he watched as the monster stood at the center, visibly drained by its own massive explosion. Its defenses were down, and its regeneration had slowed. This was the golden window Alaric had been waiting to exploit. The giant's swings grew heavy and slow. Seizing the moment, he charged forward through the swirling dust of the cavern. He blinded the beast with a strike to the eye, then danced away as it thrashed in absolute agony. He targeted its legs next, forcing the mountain of stone to collapse onto its hands in a pathetic heap. With a final, desperate roar, the guardian stood once more, its presence vanishing into thin air as Alaric looked around. The boss had vanished. Before he could react, it appeared right behind him, delivering a blow he barely managed to block. The impact sent him crashing into the stone wall. Alaric coughed up blood, his strength fading fast in the darkness. With his life on the line, he poured every last drop of his mana into one final, desperate charge forward. He unleashed a thunderous flash, slicing the titan into pieces. Trust me, Alaric's legend is only just beginning. All right, you and I are watching Alistair seize the moment, delivering a final strike that completely pierces the stone beast. Leaving a massive void in the monstrosity, he begins to recover, noticing a dropped shield. His luck was truly incredible. Along with the gear, he finds a rare skill book called Parry. It allows a knight to block any frontal attack. Seeing its worth, he masters it instantly. Now, the daunting mountain wall before him is no longer an impossible obstacle. Landing softly after his climb, he reaches the summit, but something feels off. The fog up here has never been thicker. He expected a treasure chest, but he didn't count on stumbling into a hidden quest as well. This changes everything. He remembered reading about these secret trials on the town notice boards. Once finished, they vanish forever from the world. Not expecting such a find, he decides to explore the ruins. If he falls, he will simply respawn in Oakhaven. Entering a nearby cottage, he begins a thorough search. After checking every corner, the place seems entirely abandoned. There was no one around to help. To understand this mystery alone would take the young knight a long time. He climbs onto a rooftop to observe the village. As the mist clears, he spots a glowing mage tower nearby. That must be his goal. Inside, a wizard greets him, revealing this is 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅, the legendary sky fortress of old. This city vanished during the Third War of the Gods. It shouldn't exist. It should be nothing but a myth. The mage offers to empower Alistair, provided he survives a test. Without hesitation, the brave young knight agrees to it. Given the choice of difficulty, he picks the hardest level. He has nothing to lose and everything to gain here. Now pay attention. This challenge requires him to slay 500 specters of equal rank within 4 short hours. Outside the tower, ghostly warriors begin to manifest. They rush toward the gates as the deadly quest officially begins. A spectral army advances. One slip-up would lead to his immediate execution. He needs to use his experience to survive. He notices the narrow stairs only allow 2 ghosts to pass at once. This is the perfect place for a bottleneck. The battle begins. Slowly, his kill count rises as he fends off the creatures attacking his position with savage force. As more time passes, the specters are obliterated in that narrow corridor. Reaching 500 should be a simple task. But you and I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Agile assassins start climbing the walls to surround him. Trapped on both sides, he reacts with masterful skill. He must preserve his health to make it through this ordeal. Fighting with extreme precision, he cuts through the monsters. They are desperate to drag him down into the grave. After an intense struggle, he takes his first hit. It drains his life, but he quickly counters and kills the beast. Only 100 specters remain. These are faster but more fragile. The real challenge is facing so many at once. This pushes his limits. 𝒆𝒈𝒅 descends upon them like a whirlwind, making his steel blade sing a song of death. The carnage finally ends. All 500 enemies are defeated, leaving the knight completely exhausted but victorious in battle. The mage reappears, impressed by his performance. For passing, he receives a royal chest and a legendary new title. The title sacrifices 5 strength for a 10% blessing to his allies. With a final word, the wizard vanishes. 𝒆𝒈𝒅 wished he could have asked more questions. Suddenly, a magical portal pulls him back toward the bustling city below. He falls from the sky, startling the local commoners. He refuses to return to Oakhaven until his prize is secure. He couldn't let anyone else claim the royal chest he earned. Finding a quiet alleyway, he prepares to open it. A brilliant golden light erupts from within the chest. The items he finds inside are beyond anything he had imagined. He now holds a relic weapon. It grants immense power, but can inflict a heavy toll on the wielder's own life. He stows the dangerous blade, and the skill books away. Next, he heads to Shadowvale to find a local forge. There, he can craft gear and level up. It was also the perfect chance to sell off his extra loot. He begins calling out his wares to the passing crowd. He has high-quality items that most knights could only dream of. Some players are stunned by the quality of his stock. Most only have basic rags, but he has copper-grade gear. One traveler tries to haggle for a discount, but 𝒆𝒈𝒅 refuses. Just then, his old friend Barnaby calls for help. Barnaby is struggling to keep up with the others. 𝒆𝒈𝒅 tells him to meet at the fountain for some serious assistance. Suddenly, Lord Valerius of the Black Legion arrives. He arrogantly demands to buy every single item the knight is selling. In his past life, 𝒆𝒈𝒅 was betrayed by this man. Now, seeing his face again, the fire of revenge burns bright. Valerius offers a single silver coin for everything. It is an insult, and 𝒆𝒈𝒅 promptly rejects the offer. Trust me, you and I will love seeing this arrogant noble get his payback. Trust me, you and I are about to see a street brawl that ends very badly for these rookie knights. A scout from the Nightshade Guild arrives, eyeing Arthur's bronze buckler before recognizing his face and offering 24 silver pieces for his entire stash. Arthur loves the offer and even forgives an old 50 copper debt, adding the merchant as a new ally while the crowd watches in silence. Barnaby finally arrives as Arthur bids farewell to the buyers, including one man who grumbles about wanting to stay and chat a bit longer. Arthur announces they are heading to the Obsidian Vale to hunt, a claim that sends Barnaby into a state of panic over the high-level monsters. Those beasts are Tier 4, and he begs Arthur to find a safer hunting ground before they both end up as monster food. Sir Roland isn't about to let this go unnoticed, and begins preparing a deadly ambush, while Arthur and Barnaby march toward the dark valley. Barnaby is terrified of the local beasts, but then he remembers that Arthur was one of the few who actually tested this world before launch. Since the kingdom opened 10 hours ago, almost nobody has reached the second tier yet, meaning they are already far ahead of the pack. Arthur only has this advantage because of his secret knowledge, making Barnaby much more excited about the riches in their future. Still, the reaction isn't what Arthur hoped for, since Barnaby is being way too overconfident about their safety in this dangerous land. A hidden scout begins to suspect something is wrong as he watches them march boldly into a zone that should be beyond their skills. He decides to follow them to steal their kill, while Arthur pulls Barnaby behind a rock to show him the first monster he found. Now pay attention, because they've just spotted a Tier 2 frost vixen, a rare elite beast known for its incredible and deadly speed. It's a legendary blue-tier monster, so Arthur tells Barnaby to stay back and fire magic while he handles the heavy lifting. Arthur creeps behind the snowy vixen, ready to deliver a backstab that will catch the cunning creature completely off guard. His blade hits the mark for 32 damage, but it's not enough to drop the fox, which immediately turns and enters a murderous rage. The vixen is much tougher than expected, and it prepares to lunge at Arthur's throat with its massive, razor-sharp teeth. Using his blade, he barely blocks the creature's snapping jaws, narrowly avoiding a strike that would have been instantly fatal. That single clash costs him 49 health, proving this fox is a monster in more than just name. Barnaby is frozen in shock, convinced his friend is dead, until Arthur shouts for him to finally start casting his spells. Finding his courage, Barnaby launches a magical bolt that hits the creature directly, even though the impact looks painfully weak. Despite putting all his points into intelligence, the damage is tiny, but Arthur tells him to keep focused and stay calm. He promises to hold the monster's attention, while Barnaby rains down fire from a safe distance behind his shield. This strategy works, letting Barnaby attack repeatedly while Arthur stands his ground on the front line against the beast. Arthur survives the heavy blows, using his footwork to dodge the most lethal strikes from the vixen's claws. The hidden assassin watches with contempt, thinking they are both trash and deciding it is almost time for him to intervene. The vixen still has half its life, but Arthur is panting, his strength drained from the brutal and non-stop fighting. He blocks another lunge, but his sword's durability is failing fast, nearly shattering under the weight of the monster's power. Barnaby is losing it, certain Arthur is about to die, but Arthur knows he must preserve his weapon at all costs. With a desperate kick, he knocks the creature back, creating just enough space to avoid being eaten for a few more seconds. You might think he's done for, but Arthur is about to use a secret tonic to turn this whole boss fight around. He leaps onto the beast and downs an alchemical draft, releasing a mist that weakens any enemy standing directly in front of him. The vixen's power plummets by 2 whole tiers instantly, leaving it completely vulnerable at Tier 0 for his final attack. Arthur charges with a flurry of steel, carving through the creature with a series of lightning-fast strikes as he passes. The monster is obliterated, leaving Barnaby wondering where his friend got such a powerful and game-changing tonic. Arthur knows the fight isn't over yet and prepares one last thrust to finish the battle for good this time. But as his blade moves, he realizes he's being ambushed by another player and immediately leaps back to create some distance. He comes face to face with a masked man named 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂, who grins at Arthur's impressive reflexes and stealth-dodging skills. Arthur recognizes him as a traitor from his old legion, realizing that some things in this world never truly change. Meanwhile, the dying vixen begins to glow, channeling its remaining life into one final, desperate form. It triggers a massive transformation, boosting its speed and health by 20% for one last rampage against them. The beast locks its eyes onto Arthur, the man who has been wounding it since the very beginning of the fight. Barnaby screams in terror, while 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 prepares to use the total chaos to strike Arthur down from the shadows. And trust me, you and I are about to see if Arthur can survive both a monster and a traitor. All right, you and I are about to watch Silas pull off a genius move in the middle of a double ambush. He redirects the fox's fangs toward the shadow blade. Suddenly, the hunter becomes the prey as the monster snaps its jaws. Terrified, the assassin gets swallowed like a tiny snack before being spat onto the muddy ground like a piece of garbage. While the shadow blade tries to recover his senses, even Barnaby is stunned by the chaos Silas just unleashed on the battlefield. Silas tells him to stop daydreaming and focus on the fight, because this beast is far from being finished yet. Together, they refocus and finally bring the creature down, earning 10 experience points for their hard-earned victory. They loot a common wooden staff for mages, and Silas immediately offers it to his friend since he cannot use it. Barnaby feels embarrassed, knowing he barely helped, but Silas insists the staff belongs in the hands of a curse specialist. He tells Barnaby that power is useless if not used correctly, so his friend finally accepts the gift with deep gratitude. Back in Kingsport, Lord Ignatius is absolutely furious that his best stalker failed such a simple assassination mission. Knowing the Lord is a ruthless man, the Shadow Blade hides the fact that he was actually killed during the ambush. Now pay attention here. He lies about a rare elite monster appearing in Shadow Vale to bait his boss into action. He claims Silas surprised him while he was hunting it, making the Lord believe there is legendary loot waiting there. Lord Ignatius is hooked and immediately rallies his henchmen to head straight for the valley to claim the rare monster's soul. Enraged and greedy, he vows to make Silas and Barnaby regret the day they ever crossed paths with his house. Somewhere else, Silas and Barnaby watch a blacksmith work for 30 minutes, waiting for a specific moment to trigger a quest. Barnaby is bored out of his mind, but Silas insists this patience is the only way to unlock the rewards. 10 minutes pass before the smith finally notices their interest in forging. It works. They unlock a hidden quest to gather 100 ore pieces from the depths of the Bloodstone mines. The mines crawl with level 4 monsters, but Silas uses a clever smoke bomb to mask their presence and infiltrate. As the thick smoke fills the cavern, Silas calmly tells Barnaby it is time to start attacking the creatures. Barnaby is shaking with fear, but as a level 0 mage, he obeys and launches a desperate strike. The magical blast hits home, piercing through the creature's chest and leaving it staggering from the sudden, violent impact. It survives with 21 health points and turns its glowing eyes toward Barnaby, who is now absolutely terrified. Silas reassures him, explaining that these monsters have terrible eyesight and the smoke bomb makes them almost blind. As long as they maintain a 30-meter distance, the creatures cannot pinpoint their location or mount any kind of counter-attack. The beast roars in pure frustration, unable to see the tiny mage who just blasted a hole through its hide. Silas pushes Barnaby to keep going, and this time, the mage channels his energy into a massive volley of blows. The creature finally drops dead, and surprisingly, the other monsters nearby don't even notice their fallen comrade. You and I can see Barnaby realizing how easy leveling up is with a strategist like Silas. He continues raining down destruction on the confused monsters, who have no idea where the hostility is coming from. For Barnaby, the experience feels like a fun target shooting game as the ground fills with bodies of beasts. Between waves of combat, Barnaby drinks mana potions provided by Silas. Looking at the loot, Silas notes that Barnaby must have extraordinary luck to find such rare items here. But they cannot stop. Silas moves closer to draw the aggro of a massive pack of monsters. An overwhelming number of creatures charge furiously, determined to tear Silas apart. He drops another smoke bomb to vanish, while Barnaby keeps blasting the monsters from a safe distance. After some time, Barnaby hits level 2 and Silas reaches level 3, gathering new items. Barnaby finds a bronze-level armor that Silas needed, but suddenly, the air grows cold. Hidden assassins aim for Barnaby first, hoping to eliminate the curse specialist. Silas is caught off guard and panics for his friend's safety as the ambushers reveal their presence. The Shadow Blade and his henchmen land a heavy blow, but the mage barely survives. Enraged and tired of being a burden, Barnaby resolves to take someone down with him. The Shadow Blade laughs, thinking a mediocre mage could never touch him, but he is in for a surprise. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, you and I are about to see a legendary counterattack. All right, you and I are about to see this assassin realize he picked a fight with the wrong knight. Alistair's health is half gone, but the assassin thinks it is just high-tier armor, not actual skill level. Terrified, the coward hesitates, but a sudden whirlwind of steel erupts before he can even blink a single eye. The attackers are completely shredded by a storm of blades, erased by the very same man once again. Alistair dropped 3 elite warriors, as if they were nothing more than common field mice. The young squire is frozen in awe of the power his friend has gained. Meanwhile, the Baron charges in fury. Refusing to believe his man was bested, the noble commands his squires to launch a full assault. He declares these two will learn the price of defying a lord, ordering his men to kill them. Now pay attention, because Alistair uses a smoke bomb to vanish, giving us the perfect chance for a retreat. The Baron lets them run, deciding this forest is the perfect place to slaughter monsters for more experience. His men tremble, knowing these woods are home to level 4 beasts far beyond their current strength. Enraged, the Baron points to the beasts in the smoke, telling his men to watch and learn how a master hunts. He orders the front line to lure the monsters out, while the archers prepare to rain down death. The Baron is actually a decent tactician, and his followers believe he will soon lead a great house. They think this safe farming method will bring them glory, making the Baron dream of his future crown. Rare treasures keep dropping as he pushes his weary soldiers to keep fighting without a moment of rest. A squire asks his friend if they should really let this slide or find a way to strike back. Alistair tells him to wait. It is time for these amateurs to learn a harsh lesson about this dangerous world. When the smoke finally clears, the beasts finally see their tormentors, and trust me, they are not happy. With eyes burning like hellfire, the creatures lock onto their prey, sworn to let no one leave alive. The squires freeze in terror as the first beast lunges, driven by a primal, bloodthirsty rage for vengeance. A single strike nearly splits a man in two. Smelling blood, the entire pack joins the slaughter. These monsters are seasoned warriors of the wild, and their axes are thirsty for human souls. Desperate, the noble screams for a retreat, but most of his men have already been carved apart. One hit is fatal. All their work to reach level 2 was for nothing, and they will lose everything upon death. The beasts howl, summoning a massive swarm of monsters to hunt the Baron as he tries to flee. He barely dodges a massive axe strike that would have crushed him. The noble runs for his life. Exhausted, he stops to breathe, thinking he finally escaped the horde of furious, bloodthirsty monsters. But you and I knew this was coming. He finds himself face to face with the one man he hates. The Baron attacks in a blind rage, convinced that Alistair led him into this deadly trap. His heavy strike shatters the earth, but Alistair is gone. Before he can react, a blade bites his back. Mockingly, Alistair tells him to fix his aim, since he was standing behind him the entire time. Quickly, the fool swings his axe again, but his blade finds nothing but empty air. Fuming, he vows to kill Alistair until he is stuck at level 0 forever, but he cannot land one blow. It doesn't take long for the Baron to collapse from exhaustion after so many failed attempts. He calls Alistair a coward for dodging. Taking the bait, our hero promises to stand still this time. Seeing his opening, the Baron charges, but Alistair unleashes a thunderous flash of light through his body. The Baron feels his life force drain away as Alistair walks slowly toward his dying form. Alistair says he promised to stand still, but he never said he would not strike back. As the Baron vanishes, Alistair thanks him for collecting all those precious minerals for him. The noble disappears, swearing revenge, but he loses 100 proficiency points and his level drops. Back at the capital, the Baron orders his squires to check their bags and report their heavy losses. Looking through his bag, the Baron realizes the legendary grimoire he found has vanished into thin air. Filled with hate, he vows to return and reclaim that powerful tome from Alistair immediately. And that is where we leave it. He just received a very mysterious call. Stick with me, because we are about to see who dared interrupt such a critical moment. It was his superior. Arthur spoke with forced respect, only to get shredded for his temper. Lord Julian told him his rank was gone. He was no longer a captain, warned that if he didn't shape up in the capital, he shouldn't return. The call cut out, fueling the idiot's rage even more as he blamed Arthur for his own failures. After gathering the oars, Barnaby joked about wanting to see the look on that fool's face right now. Skill attained, wind blade. It unleashes a flurry of rapid attacks while boosting attack and movement speed. It is perfect for suppressing archers, dealing damage and boosting speed. Barnaby desperately wanted a skill like that too. Arthur laughed, saying they would have to wait. Then he spotted a rock glowing with a deep emerald hue. It was a rare star crystal with a 1% appearance rate. Barnaby immediately thought they hit the jackpot. Arthur explained it was worthless for now, but its value would skyrocket in the future. His friend couldn't grasp the logic, but Barnaby understood just enough to trust his lead. He decided to keep the stone. They returned to the blacksmith, who praised their hard work gathering ores. Stage 1 was finished. Now the old man told them they needed to prove they were true warriors. Now pay attention. A hidden quest has been triggered. They had 1 hour to defeat the orc chieftain. This was completely different from Arthur's past life. He had never heard of a second stage for this quest before. The boss was level 5, strong enough to require a full team. This quest was officially high difficulty. Barnaby encouraged him, saying any quest was easy as long as Arthur was the team leader. Arthur reminded him he was doubting his info earlier. They headed back into the Eldorian mines once again. It was time to complete stage 2. Arthur charged forward with determination, ready to clear the cave. His barrage of attacks wiped out multiple monsters at once. He was moving like a blur of steel. Meanwhile, Barnaby provided support from a distance. The monsters were strong, and there were so many of them. The cave was crawling with creatures, forcing them to stay focused. One mistake would be their last. Finally, only bodies remained on the floor. Barnaby thought it was easy until Arthur gave a grim warning. The main quest hadn't even started. Suddenly, a massive tremor began to shake the entire cavern. The dungeon boss was coming. Its powerful steps sunk into the stone as it emerged from the dark. Arthur declared this the main part of the mission. Barnaby was absolutely terrified by the level 5 boss with over 2,000 health points and regeneration. He noted this special quest had a strict time limit. They had less than 20 minutes left. The beast roared furiously as the mage started to panic. He doubted they could win, convinced a single hit would kill them and end their future. You saw that look in Arthur's eyes, right? He reached into his inventory for a secret item. He had no choice but to give his all. Legend says the god of war once used this. Surrounded by enemies, he defeated them all with this weapon, becoming a myth for his legendary deeds. Arthur remembered those who became slaves to this blade's curse. The grimoire flashed a final warning. It asked if he would bind his soul. This was a dangerous choice, but he was ready. As a reincarnated warrior, he wouldn't fail. The system warned that this bond was eternal and irreversible. Every consequence was his alone. After the ritual, a dragon made of shadows emerged on the battlefield. The binding to the legendary abyssal blade was a success. Arthur finally held the ultimate dark weapon. His level was reset to 0 instantly. Barnaby couldn't understand it, thinking it was a massive glitch. Arthur reassured him, saying he was now stronger than ever before. This power was on another level. The blade ignores 5 levels of defense, deals double damage, and curses every enemy it touches. The orc roared, empowering its minions. Arthur told his friend to find a safe spot to hide. Barnaby eagerly accepted the suggestion. Arthur was ready to slice through the horde as they closed in. He wielded his magical sword. perfectly prepared to defend himself against the incoming wave of monsters. The second they entered his range, they were sliced apart like paper. Barnaby was absolutely stunned. Trust me, we just witnessed a god being born, and this final battle is only just getting started. Stick with me. You are about to see Arthur survive a beast that loves blinding its prey. Despite its massive size, its strike was blindingly fast, slicing Arthur in half while Barnaby watched in horror. But this was a skill from his new blade, the Phantom Edge, which created a controllable spectral double. The boss realized it was a trick and struck the clone. Seeing his enemy alive, Arthur charged forward. Determined to end this, he unleashed a powerful wind gale, dealing over 100 points of damage in one strike. He followed up with a relentless barrage of slashes, but his turn was far from over as he danced. Arthur delivered devastating thunderous strikes, and just like that, the creature's health bar was slashed in half. The momentum shifted completely, as the beast was forced to endure a one-sided beating from our hero. Now pay attention. Arthur is about to find out if his absolute confidence was a masterstroke or a fatal mistake. The hits were more brutal than expected. Arthur knew a single mistake now would mean his immediate end. Then, the boss used shimmering dust to double its speed. This was definitely a nightmare scenario for Arthur. Oblivious to the danger, Barnaby launched a nearly useless attack out of pure concern for his best friend. He realized his strongest move was only as powerful as one of Arthur's basic strikes, but he tried. The creature's eyes burned with fury, eager to repay that minor damage with interest rates that would ruin anyone. Seeing the beast change targets, Arthur yelled for Barnaby to run, but the poor fool tripped and fell. Barnaby expected to die right there, decapitated by a giant axe, until he opened his eyes and saw magic. Several magical chains were holding the beast back. This was the Abyssal Bond, a secret skill Arthur kept ready. It lowered the monster's defense and froze it for 3 seconds. With a tiny margin, Arthur saved him. I know what you are thinking, this is the end, right? Well, think again. Staring into eyes filled with madness, Arthur prepared to unleash his wind gale from a very close range. He landed a massive hit right on the creature's face. Barnaby took this chance to finally get out. Despite the heavy damage, the monster was still standing. Arthur barely dodged a fatal swing from its axe. Even with its body failing, the dungeon lord fought on with a savage and relentless fury against him. Through a series of quick dodges, Arthur gained some breathing room as the monster prepared its ultimate move. It looked like a legendary signature move, a concentrated ball of pure destruction forming inside the beast's mouth. From that ball, dozens of smaller creatures emerged, scurrying across the floor like a wave of death toward him. Arthur realized this was a stall tactic. His only choice was a risky skill, though he doubted his strength. Considering the gravity of the situation, he didn't have time to think. He simply had to take the risk. The small beasts charged, hungry for flesh, but they were sliced into ribbons before they could get close. As expected, controlling so many magical blades was draining. He directed every single one of them at the boss. The blades struck home, causing small explosions that left the creature's health at a critical level during the fight. One more strike, and it is over. But before he could finish the job, a wave of deep pain surged through his entire body. His summoned blades shattered into dust as his stamina hit 0. Arthur collapsed, his body completely paralyzed. Trust me, the stakes are insane. If his energy hits 0, he's paralyzed and kicked out of the trial. Blake, watching from afar, is terrified for his friend. Seeing the beast still breathing, he screams for Arthur to move. The thought of giving up triggered a memory of his past life, where he had been discarded like useless trash. He had been sent back 10 years in time. Was it a blessing, or was it a curse? Arthur did not know if it was fate, but he refused to give up now. He was going to rewrite his destiny. He stepped forward, using his magic ring to defy gravity as he lunged toward the monster with everything. He leaped through the air, his spectral clone appearing beside him to deliver the final killing blow. The creature gasped as precise strikes hit its eyes, blinding it completely before it could even react. With its vision gone, the beast swung its weapon wildly in desperation, but Arthur was already moving fast. Using his clone as a springboard, Arthur closed the gap, and trust me, he was moving like lightning. A dark aura enveloped everything. You will want to see this. Stick with me. We're about to see how 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 turns a single strike into a legendary victory. He earned valuable experience and finished a secret trial. Meanwhile, Barnaby moped, feeling he was completely useless. He had to admit it, 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄's skill was purely insane. Among the treasures they looted was a rare grimoire meant for dark mages. Barnaby had insane luck, though he still had no idea why. Since he hadn't helped in the fight, he begged 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 to teach him how to become a real knight. Barnaby figured he should dump every single point into his intelligence stat to gain more magical power. Now pay attention here. This is the moment 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 reveals the real secret to survival. Remember that giant axe that nearly sliced you in half? Yeah, that was your first brush with death. Without 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 stepping in, Barnaby would have been waking up at the temple in the capital city. He explained that higher agility means dodging blows and firing off spells way faster than any normal mage. They found a set of enchanted robes that would fit him perfectly. Plus, he needed to keep that rare spellbook. It taught the Shadow Lash, a powerful spell that drains life while freezing enemies in their tracks. Barnaby's eyes sparkled. However, 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 warned him that the 3-second casting time required perfect timing. He had to plan his positioning perfectly. With his new gear, Barnaby finally looked like a proper adventurer. 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 was fully kitted out too. Heading back to the forge, he was finally ready to inherit legendary secrets. He earned the Master Artificer title. Now, every item he crafted would grant him 2 proficiency points. Barnaby thought 2 points was a joke, but 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 knew better than to underestimate those small numbers. Reach 1,000 points, and he'd become a grandmaster. As a genius, his progress would be lightning fast. Barnaby asked for a custom weapon, but crafting legendary gear requires rare blueprints and precious materials. Deep within the Shadow Weald, they could find bronze blueprints that every rookie knight was dying to get. As they left, you and I both know that look. The blacksmith spotted something mysterious on 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄's belt. He stopped them immediately, asking to see the blade. He suspected it was a weapon of true myth. He asked if it was truly a cursed artifact. If it was what he thought, 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 was in danger. The blacksmith warned that the curse might already be poisoning 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄's soul. He'd never seen such a relic. Shaking with excitement, he asked to inspect it. 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 realized this might trigger a hidden legendary trial. He handed it over. The sword was forged by a master using a dragon's fang as the core. Ranked 31st among the realm's greatest blades, it carried a terrifying penalty that could permanently cripple its master. The curse had already begun to drain 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄's strength. There was no known way to break its hold. However, there was a way to suppress it using an item of immense celestial power. Only celestial shards could resist the dark energy, but they were almost impossible to find in this kingdom. Unbelievably, Barnaby already had one. They'd been calling it a star crystal, totally unaware of its true value. The blacksmith was stunned. 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄's luck was beyond anything he'd seen in all his years at the forge. In his past life, these shards became so expensive they were used as gold bars by the elite. With the materials ready, the smith fired up his furnace, eager to work on such a legendary cursed blade. He poured everything into enhancing the Void Reaver, successfully suppressing the curse that threatened 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄's life. With his improved weapon in hand, 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 thanked the smith. Suddenly, a message arrived from an old ally. The knight he'd helped earlier wanted to repay the favor by offering valuable secrets in exchange for gear. 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 told Barnaby they'd been invited to a dangerous dungeon deep within the Shadow Weald. Barnaby wondered if they really needed a team, but this dungeon required a full party for any success. At the ancient portal, groups were already forming. 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄 spotted the knight he'd helped out before. The warrior thanked him again. Thanks to 𝒆𝒈𝒄𝒄's advice, He'd already reached level 2 while others struggled. With Alistair leading them, they expected a smooth run, but the other knights weren't so sure about him. They scoffed when they saw he was only level 1. Clearly, they had no idea who they were facing. They started questioning why they were even waiting for a level 1 rookie. One of them stepped forward. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, these guys are about to learn a very painful lesson. All right, you and I are about to watch a total underdog get disrespected by a bunch of arrogant elite players. A mage calls Arthur's nerve audacious, openly mocking him for giving orders when he is just a mediocre rank 1. Arthur and Barnaby decide to leave the group, a bold move that earns him some silent respect from the warriors. Before heading out, Arthur invites Alistair to join them, making it clear that the choice is entirely in his hands. Alistair decides to trust the man who helped him at the start, despite his friends being deeply concerned for him. They believe he is being tricked by a scammer, but Alistair is genuinely excited to follow this mysterious specialist. Barnaby encourages them, promising they will not regret it, as Arthur tells him to activate his staff's special enchantments. Barnaby obeys instantly, unleashing power that leaves the rookie Alistair absolutely stunned by the massive display of magic. Now searching for 3 more allies, other players notice that the gear Barnaby carries is actually quite extraordinary. The items this specialist carries are incredible, especially that expensive staff Barnaby is wielding so expertly now. Those who rejected them are now filled with regret, even though they still hate a rank 1 leader. They hatch a bold plan to steal the specialist away from Arthur with a very enticing proposal. Pay attention here, because their arrogant plan is about to blow up right in their faces when he replies. Barnaby delivers a sharp rejection, leaving the mage relieved he will not have to share any rare loot. The young man is left fuming after Barnaby's refusal, but the recruitment drive in the square goes on. Other players use Arthur as a bad example, calling him a beginner who will surely die in the Shadowwood. Recruitment is tough, but Arthur stays cool, noticing the crowd suddenly rushing toward one specific spot in the plaza. Something major is happening, as the entire crowd is captivated by the arrival of a legendary beauty. Everyone begins running in one direction, as if something massive is happening right in the middle of town. They are completely captivated by a beautiful woman, and even Barnaby is struggling to believe what he sees. A powerful girl with stunning hair and a figure that looks absolutely perfect has appeared in the plaza. She is joined by 2 other famous beauties, and every single player in the area is instantly mesmerized. Lady Gwendolyn walks past them, ignoring everyone, while Arthur wonders what such a famous player is doing here. Morgana, the wicked blonde, watches the players, mocking how easily they fall under Gwendolyn's magical spell. Even Barnaby is caught in the trance, until Arthur has to use firm methods to snap him back. Joining this elite group of women is every player's dream, but Morgana is not having any of it. She declares that none of them are remotely useful, even when a charming young man tries to approach. His attempt at charm fails miserably, and even his friends are too clueless to help him out. Morgana demands they all leave immediately, or she will burn them to the bone with her flames. You and I can see why she is feared, but the players are still desperate to follow her after that. She calls them a waste of time, and orders everyone to vanish before she loses her patience. She literally scares off every player in sight, leaving Barnaby trembling at her sheer, terrifying power. In Arthur's past life, she was the flame witch who once annihilated a 10,000-man guild overnight. She hunted their leader until he dropped to rank 0, proving she is not someone to cross. The witch notices Arthur is the only man not staring at her, and she demands to know his deal. She finds Arthur incredibly strange, wondering why Lady Gwendolyn is even looking at a rank 1. She assumes he is just playing hard to get, a common tactic men use to grab their attention. Regardless, Lady Gwendolyn decides to approach the young man, curious about his true intentions here. She asks if he truly has the courage to enter the deadly Shadowwood at such a low rank. Arthur calmly invites her to join his team, which absolutely infuriates the hot-headed Morgana at her side. Gwendolyn notices Barnaby's bronze items and the very unusual hilt of the sword Arthur is carrying. To Morgana, it looks like junk, but Gwendolyn suspects there is a hidden purpose to its appearance. The blonde demands to know how he has a strategy for a dungeon that has never been cleared. Arthur claims he met a beta tester, though Lady Gwendolyn clearly has her doubts about his wild story. Trust me, you and I need to see if she actually believes his story or just calls his bluff right now. All right, stick with me because Alistair is about to reveal why this forest is a literal death trap for the unwary. New knights are wiped out before they even see a monster, trapped forever until they choose a forced respawn. That dark fate shocked the onlookers, but Alistair just pointed to the broken survivors as living proof of the horror. Lady Alara felt a spark of interest, even if her blonde guard was convinced the whole story was a lie. Still, the lady chose to trust him to conquer this dungeon, turning to her noble retainers with a firm command. They would form one team. The young sorceress blushed, clearly fascinated by this mysterious and confident commoner leading them. But Seraphina, the blonde knight, remained suspicious, certain that Alistair was hiding some dark, twisted motive behind his words. Alara assured her that the truth would be revealed once they stepped inside the dungeon's cold, misty embrace. The crowd was stunned to see such highborn beauties join a ragtag crew, and Cedric couldn't believe Alistair's luck. Getting these powerful women on their side was a masterstroke, and the party felt ready to face any challenge. Now, pay attention here. This is the moment they step into the abyss, with Alistair leading the charge. As they crossed the threshold, an ominous warning echoed through their minds. The cost of failure here had just tripled. While the risks were higher, the promise of legendary artifacts and rare treasures awaited them in the shadows. Seraphina fumed, realizing Alistair had forced them into hell difficulty, and even Cedric started sweating at the sheer madness. The angry knight threatened to have Alistair's head if things went south, but he remained calm under her pressure. He promised he had full confidence in his decision, as Galahad asked, "Which path leads through this tangled maze?" Alistair warned them of the endless crossroads, insisting they stay on his heels to avoid being swallowed by the mist. Setting the pace, he picked a narrow trail, while the sorceress Rowan still wondered if they were being led astray. Alara signaled for the march to continue, and the group plunged deeper into the heart of the ancient, silent woods. Most guilds lost hundreds of scouts to map these 36 paths, yet Alistair guided them through with ease. Only 3 roads lead to the beast, and Alistair was determined to slay it, despite Seraphina's constant, nagging doubts. The knight stayed skeptical, but Lady Alara noted with surprise that they hadn't encountered a single creature so far. Suddenly, a pack of ghouls crossed the very path they just left. A second later, and they would be in a bloodbath. Seraphina scoffed, claiming they could handle a few monsters, but Alistair reminded her that fighting trash was a total waste. Low-level kills offered no glory or loot, so he kept them moving, much to the annoyance of the hot-headed knights. "I know what you're thinking. Where's the action?" Well, Cedric sensed it too, right before the clearing opened up. They reached the boss's lair, but the eerie silence felt wrong. There was absolutely nothing in sight until the ground shook. A violent tremor threw them off balance, as Alistair shouted for everyone to draw their steel and prepare for war. From the dirt erupted a nightmare, the dire hare, a ferocious beast that was infinitely more lethal than its cute name. It flexed massive, razor-sharp claws at the party, its tiny frame hiding a predatory instinct that would chill your blood. This creature only hungered for human flesh, leaving Galahad stunned that their very first encounter was the dungeon's master. Alistair simply grinned, noting that killing the boss directly meant they'd skip the junk and get the real rewards. Lady Alara drew her blade, ready for the clash, as Alistair assigned her the role of the frontline guardian. The mage Rowan looked confused, so Alistair explained that the tank must hold the beast's fury at all costs. By drawing the monster's attention, the others could strike freely from the shadows without fearing a lethal counterattack. The Guardian needed massive stamina to survive. Otherwise, one swipe from those claws would mean an instant, bloody death. He promised to guide them through the chaos, but suddenly, the hot-headed warrior broke formation and charged in alone. Alistair cursed under his breath, wondering why Galahad was rushing before the sorceress could even cast her protection spells. With no way to halt his momentum, the warrior lunged forward, but Alistair watched in horror as he tripped. Even the dire hare looked baffled by the clumsiness, but it quickly realized this was a perfect chance for slaughter. The monster lunged for the kill, and Galahad's face went pale as he realized his life was forfeit. But Cedric wasn't having it, weaving a spell of grasping vines that locked the rabbit in place instantly. Saved from the brink, the warrior breathed a thanks while the beast struggled against its leafy, magical prison. Seeing the monster trapped, Galahad went for a reckless headbutt, hoping to crack the creature's skull wide open. Big mistake. That rabbit was made of steel, and you and I both know that hurt him way more. All right, you and I are about to see this noble girl lose her mind over a reckless knight. Calling him a cannonball, the sorceress began chanting support spells to aid the battle and mend his wounds. The knight's reckless charge had cost him, but the vines holding the beast were finally snapping. Cedric admitted his magic had reached its limit, so the knight prepared for a second desperate strike. He unleashed a flurry of steel against the monster, while Arthur noticed Snow's incredibly precise movements. Snow's technique was flawless, allowing the entire party to finally launch a coordinated offensive. Lady Beatrice ordered everyone back, preparing to unleash a devastating fire spell from her staff. The knight barely escaped being turned to ash by the friendly fire of the noble girl's magic. The beast shrieked as the spell connected, and Beatrice smirked at her own overwhelming destructive power. However, the creature didn't falter, instead entering a blood frenzy that boosted its speed and strength 30%. Snow realized the beast's fury was now locked onto the one who dealt the most damage. Beatrice's arrogance turned to pure terror as the flesh-eating monster charged directly at her position. Dealing that massive blow had backfired, putting the noble girl right in the creature's crosshairs. Now watch this. The monster closes the gap instantly, but a hero steps up. Arthur's blade intercepted the strike, and Beatrice squinted through the dust as stone and earth shattered. Even though it nearly reached her, the beast had already shifted its focus back to the swordsman. Arthur warned the team that the boss's damage was lethal, promising to draw its attention himself. Beatrice didn't argue as long as she was safe, though Snow worried about Arthur's risky plan. The monster's enhanced speed became a nightmare to track, pushing Arthur to his absolute physical limits. After a heavy impact, Arthur struggled to regain his footing as the beast prepared another vicious assault. There was no time to breathe before the rabbit lunged again with a relentless series of strikes. The creature unleashed its ultimate skill, lethal claws, sending waves of cutting force toward the fighter. Arthur's agility saved him, allowing a clean block before the beast slammed back onto the ground. The monster began spinning like a massive drill, tearing through the forest floor toward its target. Knowing he couldn't take it head-on, Arthur dodged before eventually bracing against the impact with magic. Even while defending with his enchanted blade, the sheer force continued to drain his remaining vitality. Seizing an opening, Snow lunged forward with a powerful kick that sent the beast flying backward. As the creature lay dazed, the sorceress quickly cast a healing spell to restore Arthur's strength. Arthur noted the beast was weakening and urged the team to strike while its guard was down. He sternly told his teammates to keep their distance and avoid pulling the monster's aggro again. Beatrice stayed silent, though she was fuming inside at being lectured by someone she looked down on. I know what you're thinking, health is low, it's over, but stay with me. As its health dwindled, Arthur prepared a final blow, but the noble girl refused to be outshone. She rained down massive explosions on the creature, determined to prove her superiority over the commoners. The boss finally fell, leaving behind several rare treasures that Cedric hoped would be highly valuable. Arthur advised everyone to recover their mana before looting, and the girls agreed with his wisdom. He noted that arrogance often kills players at the end, but their steady approach had succeeded. The knight wondered if the danger was truly gone, just as the sound of shattering stone echoed. A massive werewolf radiating dark energy emerged from the shadows. A level 3 boss had appeared. But the players didn't flinch, and the sheer bloodlust in their eyes actually made the monster hesitate. Before the werewolf could react, the party launched a synchronized attack that caught it off guard. Arthur led the charge with a furious strike, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and debris. It didn't take long for the second boss to be subdued, yielding even more rare skill books. Even Beatrice had to admit the loot was incredible, as Snow allowed the boys first choice. And trust me, you and I just witnessed the start of a legend. Stick with me. We're about to see Alaric's crew score some epic loot, and Blake wastes no time equipping his new armor. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒅 tests out a powerful new technique, while Lady Alara fumes, watching the most valuable items get snatched up. She is convinced the best gear is gone, but the mage shuts her down, reminding everyone they survived thanks to Alaric. None of them would have cleared that dungeon without Alaric's genius. Meanwhile, Lady Seraphina stares at her prize in utter shock. She quickly offers Alaric her thanks, and even the bitter Lady Alara is stunned when they pull a legendary potion recipe. That recipe is worth its weight in gold right now, but Alaric simply tells them that their efforts earned every reward. He acts like it is nothing, but Alara's face says it all. She is definitely starting to feel some type of way. Outside, the gambling crowds are debating which high-tier team will finish first, until a massive system alert freezes the air. A server-wide message congratulates Alaric's squad for the world-first completion of the Whispering Woods. Every single player is speechless. The crowd stands in total silence as the portal opens and Alaric's team emerges, their glowing new gear catching every eye. Now pay attention here. Lady Seraphina steps forward and asks if Alaric would consider joining her elite house, the Serpent Order. Alaric turns her down cold. She respects the move, but mentions an unexplored 20-player raid happening in just 3 days. She wants to know if they're in, but Alaric warns her that his Shadow Moon Knights need to reach level 5 first. He doubts she can even find 20 elites, but Lady Seraphina just smiles, knowing exactly what her massive guild is capable of. Her guild is the largest power in 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒅, backed by massive noble houses who have invested everything into this virtual realm. She asks for his contact so she can call him when it is time. Alaric agrees, but with one major condition. He demands priority over all swordsman gear and rare designs. Lady Alara calls him arrogant, but Blake is just losing his mind. He can't believe his friend just got a private request from a legendary beauty, while the surrounding players watch in fury. Seeing these nobodies with the kingdom's top beauties fills the crowd with pure, unfiltered hatred. They're ready to start a riot. Blake and the knights start getting nervous as the mob closes in, but Alaric calmly tells them to start running immediately. They bolt from the area, leaving the angry crowd screaming for answers on how they beat those impossible dungeon traps. You and I both know this is just the start. Next up is Shadowvale, a level 4 zone where only fools venture. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒅 wonders why the area is so deserted. Alaric explains that everyone else is still stuck failing in the Whispering Woods. Suddenly, a lone player sprints toward them, begging to join. Alaric stops when he recognizes the legendary name on the screen. It is Bjorn the Iron, a famous guardian knight from the kingdom of Asteria. He is exhausted but thrilled to find allies. His journey has been a disaster, getting kicked from mediocre teams before eventually becoming a superstar in the Dawn Guild. Alaric knows that recruiting this man right now will make their future battles a total walk in the park. Bjorn explains he has been soloing monsters and surviving against all odds. He hasn't seen another soul for miles and desperately needs a squad. He claims he only survives because of his ability to take insane damage. His defense stats are absolutely through the roof. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒅 is impressed. A frontline tank this reliable is exactly what they need to survive the coming Shadowvale boss. Knowing Bjorn's legendary future, Alaric officially invites him. Kalen is relieved to finally have a proper shield in front of him. Now the damage dealers can go all out. But Bjorn notices they lack a healer and mentions his unusual friend nearby. His friend is an oracle. Kalen scoffs, calling it a useless class with almost zero direct healing power for a party. Alaric corrects him. Oracles have massive vitality and can turn damage into health, keeping the tank alive without burning through mana. Meet 𝒌𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅. He is only level 2 and was actually about to delete his character until Alaric stepped in. He thought his class was trash, but Alaric tells him it is the player behind the screen that truly makes the legend. With the party full, they prepare to enter the Shadowvale portal. On the other side, a pack of goblins is waiting. The monsters are laughing, eager to rip into some fresh players. They have no idea what is about to hit them. They didn't expect a tank with this level of strength. Bjorn smiles as he activates his massive taunt, drawing them in. He pulls every monster's focus toward himself, while Sir Kalen begins a deadly whirlwind of steel through the enemy lines. Goblins are shredded in seconds. Then, Blake unleashes his new secret ability, the Infernal Flames. It is absolute carnage on screen. The creatures are turned to ash instantly. In a blur of motion, Alaric dashes through the battlefield, striking with lethal precision. Goblins are shredded in seconds. Then, Blake unleashes his new secret ability, the Infernal Flames. It is absolute carnage. The creatures turn to ash instantly. In a blur of motion, Alaric dashes through the battlefield with lethal precision. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this team handles the final boss. Right, you and I are diving into a world where a massive haul of silver means nothing when the monsters start running. Suddenly, the heavens turn pitch black. A colossal iron sentinel drops onto the field, and it is absolutely massive. Our healer is shaking. Why is a high-level warden appearing in a starter zone? A hidden event has just been triggered. This beast is level 5 and shrugs off 95% of all damage. 𝒌𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 asks for orders, but his leader is frozen. Alaric is paralyzed by fear. He screams for everyone to run before this metal nightmare tears them all apart. They have to reach the exit gate beyond the monster's reach. In his past life, Alaric saw this horror before. He was with elite knights then and thought they could win. They were young, arrogant, and hungry for rare loot. But that dream ended in a total bloodbath. Their entire squad was wiped out with zero chance of survival. Now, pay attention. The sentinel realizes they are fleeing and readies its cannons. We are in for a rough ride. Heavy projectiles rain down, missing our heroes by mere inches as they scramble through the dirt for their lives. 𝒌𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 is feeling the pressure. He decides to fire back from a distance, hoping to slow the Titan down. Direct hit, but it only does 1 point of damage. This thing's armor is basically a rolling mountain of steel. Alaric curses their luck. He tells them if they use mana, it has to be for movement-locking spells only. 𝒌𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 follows the command and conjures the bramble whip, wrapping the iron sentinel's legs and pinning it down. As the group retreats, that one attack actually starts hurting the boss. Alaric notices something strange happening here. He realizes the sentinel has a fatal weakness to nature-based magic. He stops the retreat and calls for a counterattack. The plan is simple: drag this fight out. 𝒌𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 will be the primary damage dealer while the rest act as bait. Sir Cedric is ready, charging at the giant with his shield held high. He's got guts, I'll give him that. But even his strongest blow barely leaves a scratch. 1 tiny point of damage is all he can manage. Somehow, the sheer volume of his strikes stuns the machine. It is the opening they desperately needed. With the boss dazed, 𝒌𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 lashes out with the bramble whip again. The metal giant's health is finally dropping. The sentinel breaks its chains to survive, but it didn't notice a certain knight leaping from the shadows above. Cedric brings down a divine strike, smashing into the golem and forcing it to focus entirely on him. The golem swings back with a heavy fist. Cedric blocks, but the impact nearly shatters his bones instantly. He has lost half his health in one blow. Silas quickly uses the whip again to give him some breathing room. Cedric is shouting for a heal as he retreats. One more hit, and he is a dead man. Father Julian prays as fast as he can, but his holy light is far too slow for this chaos. Alaric steps to the front to draw the aggro. He needs to buy Cedric time to recover his strength. He locks the boss down with the abyssal tether and unleashes a barrage of unblockable thunderous slashes. You and I both know that Goblin Pilot inside is probably wondering if these humans have a death wish. Alaric uses his gravity ring to sprint up the canyon wall, dodging heavy steel fists with every step. He gains distance and starts slashing, not at the monster, but at the fragile cliffside above the Sentinel's head. Massive boulders rain down, crushing the machine. The Sentinel is trapped and its health is in the red. A hatch pops open, and a small goblin jumps out. He mocks the heroes before trying to vanish. The team is livid. They didn't come this far to let the mastermind just walk away from the battle. Alaric is consumed by the dark shadows of his cursed blade. He refuses to let his prey escape. Loot like this only comes once in a lifetime. He summons his spectral swords and takes aim. The terrified goblin barely dodges the blades by a hair, continuing his frantic scramble for the exit. Sadly, the creature slips away. Alaric stares at the spot, realizing he just met the legendary Arthur Maddox. Alaric realizes that was Arthur Maddox, a legendary engineer who, in 3 years, will build the massive Sky Fortress and the Gnome Empire. He never expected to face an endgame boss in a place like this. Julian finds a small chest in the wreckage. Inside lies a treasure map, a fair prize for their struggle. Alaric tells the group the area is safe now. It is the perfect time for everyone to level up. He wanders off alone, telling his knights he's going to track down the map's hidden secrets. Stick with me, because next, we're uncovering the ancient alchemist's secret that can even revive the dead. All right, you and I are diving into a world where our hero, Arthur, hunts for legendary treasure in the Ruby Lake. Despite the level 10 warning, he dives straight to the bottom, only to come face to face with a colossal beast. Using his gravity ring, Arthur surges through the depths, narrowly escaping the creature's reach as he reaches a dark, jagged ravine. Inside that gorge lies the mythical Philosopher's Stone, but it's guarded by elite sentinels far beyond his current power level. Instead of a suicidal frontal assault, he summons a magical double to lure the guardians away while he slips past them. While the monsters hunt the decoy, Arthur reaches a massive iron gate hidden deep within the lightless caverns of the lake. He slides his ancient key into the lock, and with a heavy groan, the barrier finally yields to his sheer persistence. Now pay attention. This glowing portal is the only bridge between Arthur and the legendary Sun Temple he is seeking. The temple is a lawless zone with no level cap, guarded by 2 towering armored statues that radiate pure, lethal intent. Moving like a ghost, Arthur ascends the stone steps toward a solitary chest tucked away in the shadows of the vault. As he pries the lid open, a blinding radiance floods the chamber, nearly knocking our hero off his feet with power. There it is, the Philosopher's Stone. It's smaller than he imagined, but the raw energy vibrating from it is real. This is just one of 5 shattered fragments, yet it's enough to forge god-tier gear. Suddenly, the ancient statues begin to stir. 2 level 100 titans are now awake, and Arthur knows there is 0 chance of winning a fight against them. Luckily, a nearby skeleton clutches a rare teleportation scroll, his only hope of leaving this death trap in one single piece. He activates the scroll to warp back to the capital, but a terrifying realization hits him. The casting time is painfully slow. As the timer ticks down, one statue raises its massive sword for a strike that would surely pulverize him into dust. Just watch this. He is totally cornered, watching his own demise hurtle toward him with nowhere left to run. The spell completes a fraction of a second before the impact, as a massive explosion rocks the entire lake floor behind him. The local merfolk tribes feel the tremors and realize their sacred treasure is gone, sending them into a blind, murderous rage. Now, their fury is aimed at all of humanity, triggering a server-wide event known as the Great Merfolk Uprising. Every adventurer in the kingdom rushes to the guild, desperate for a chance to score the rare loot from this war. While everyone is hyped, a high-ranking noblewoman named Lady Beatrice demands to know who sparked this chaotic global event. Her rival, Lady Snow, just laughs. She knows exactly who did this. Arthur is the only man crazy enough to pull it off. Ruby Lake might be a low-level zone, but Beatrice realizes Arthur always finds a way to turn the world upside down. She is getting suspicious, wondering what other secrets he is hiding. Miles away, Arthur sneezes, feeling like someone is talking about him. He knows he only survived that temple by pure luck. Safely back in the capital, he heads straight for the auction house. This is the hub, where the kingdom's richest knights buy and sell rare materials harvested from the world's deadliest monsters. Arthur dumps his excess loot onto the market, and immediately, the local merchant lords are stunned by the high-tier quality. With his new stone fragment, he can now transmute ordinary iron into legendary metals, making his survival a whole lot easier. After listing his gear, he goes on a shopping spree, buying up every single magic stone and essence on the shelves. The merchant girl who listed them is in shock. Her entire stock vanished in seconds, bought out by one mysterious shadow. Word spreads like wildfire through the market as players scramble to find more stones before this wealthy buyer takes them all. Everyone inside is dying to know who this mysterious tycoon is, while outside, Arthur is already planning his next upgrade. He spends a few copper coins to rent a rundown, abandoned forge for 1 hour to start his secret refinement process. The tools are rusted and cheap, but 10 copper coins does not buy much. Undeterred, he begins the delicate work. His first attempt is a total disaster. The metal cracks and his heart sinks, but he refuses to give up now. He tries a second time, then a third, failure after failure. Arthur realizes his luck might be running out today. Maybe one fragment is not enough to stabilize the reaction. Just as he's about to quit, he spots a glowing, rare ore. Out of dozens of tries, finally, success. One perfect piece emerges, and that is all the motivation he needs to keep going. Slowly, his rhythm improves, and the success rate climbs. But the mental strain of such high-level crafting is starting to show. He stockpiles nearly 500 refined ores just before his rental time at the forge expires, making the effort worthwhile. He was so deep in the zone that he forgot to actually forge a weapon, and now he is officially broke again. He spent every last coin on raw materials, but then he sees a notification. His auction items have finally been sold. So stick around, because Arthur is about to rent a master-tier forge and finally craft something truly legendary. Stick with me. For 2 silver coins, Arthur secures a forge to show us what he can really do. Looking at his system, Arthur plans his next move. He is ready to see just how far his skills go. He is loving this life as a blacksmith. He starts by tossing a chunk of copper onto the heavy anvil. The hammer falls again and again. On his first try, he actually pulls off a perfect piece of plate armor. It even has a bonus stat. Arthur knows the knights in this kingdom will be clawing to buy this. He goes into a zone, crafting as fast as possible before his time runs out. His stamina starts fading. He gains 2 levels and finishes 23 full sets. He is ready to flood the market with his new gear. Buyers are losing their minds over the quality. Arthur is set to clear 4 silver coins on every set. The armor is flying off the shelves. While browsing the shops, he spots some incredibly rare skill books for sale. Alaric's lackey listed them to fund their guild. Arthur knows they are desperate to climb the ranks at any cost. He sees through their lies. The man leading that guild is nothing but a master of manipulation and deceit. He buys the books to spite them. Suddenly, he gets a message from Lady Aliner, a high-ranking noble knight. She needs a favor, which is completely unlike her. Arthur wonders what could have shaken such a powerful warrior. She needs silver to outbid other factions for gear. She is locked in a fierce rivalry with the kingdom's top guilds. She asks if he is the smith. He is a terrible liar, but he denies it all. Watch this carefully. He sends the money anyway. He is still stunned by her intuition. Those massive guilds have nearly bottomless gold reserves. As the bidding war heats up, the price of his armor skyrockets. It is becoming a luxury only lords can afford. One man thought 13 silver was enough for 2 sets, but he is too slow. Each set now costs 9 silver. Flush with cash, Arthur rents a top-tier forge for 10 hours. There is still a fortune left to be made. He hammers away in total isolation. He is so focused that the entire day passes by in a literal blink. He slips for a second, almost ruining the piece. But then, a notification pops up that changes everything for him. He created an unknown armor, and his skills surged. He is feeling incredibly lucky to have made something so rare. This is a one-of-a-kind original. You cannot find this in any loot drop. It must be forged by a master. He carves his signature into the steel to claim it. This brand is permanent and will make him famous. Now he can sell the gear and the secret blueprints. The profit from this will be absolutely massive for him. Every guild wants a master smith for their unique perks, but making an original item like this is almost impossible. He was purely lucky. Making these sets burned through his supplies way faster than he thought it ever would. He heads back to the market to list more goods, but he notices the crowd has thinned out quite a bit. A passing traveler tells him a new smith is in town. This rival is undercutting Arthur with cheaper goods. This is Alaric. In a past life, he betrayed Arthur. You and I both know it is revenge time. Alaric was the one who found the master quest back then. He was the key player in ruining Arthur's old life. Now Alaric is trashing Arthur's work on the public boards. It makes Arthur absolutely furious to see such blatant lies. Arthur realizes Alaric is losing money just to spite him. But this time, he is not going to let him win. He lists his new, superior armor at the exact same price. He is ready to fight for his place in history. He starts hyping his shimmering gear as the only choice. It looks truly fabulous compared to the competition's trash. Knights are regretting their old purchases already. The barbaric armor just cannot compete with Arthur's legendary style and stats. Word spreads across every city in the realm. Alaric feels like a superstar, thinking every guild leader wants his work. He is snubbing the smaller guilds for now. He wants to steal the fame from that mysterious smith once and for all. He waits for the biggest lords to come knocking. He thinks it is only a matter of time before he wins. But then he hears the news. The guilds have lost all interest in his items and have moved on. He checks his stalls and finds them completely deserted. He is shaking with rage, unable to believe what just happened. Someone is selling better gear for the same gold. Alaric is becoming purely furious as he watches his plan fail. He will never get the fame he craves at this rate. His dreams of being a legend are slipping away. He imagines his rival is spending a fortune to crush him. He is determined to stay in the fight regardless. He wants to see how far his rival will go. Trust me, you and I are staying for this. Arthur secured the raw materials and made his move, hoping this plan would finally end his money troubles forever. He borrowed 10,000 crowns from the Grandmaster, then rushed back to the Merchants' Guild with his pockets full. Stick with me, because Arthur just announced he's dropping his plate armor price by 1 silver crown. Lord Cedric couldn't believe Arthur was still pushing this trade war, so he matched the price cut in total desperation. Commoners loved the cheap gear, but the tension was rising as Cedric realized his mysterious rival wasn't backing down. When Arthur slashed prices again, Cedric panicked. He knew that cutting costs even further would eventually bankrupt his house. It was financial suicide, yet he was too stubborn to quit. He lowered the price of his barbarian plate armor again. High-tier armor was now dirt cheap at 30 coppers, but he didn't realize Arthur had a deadlier trick ready. Arthur didn't just cut prices, he leaked the blueprints. Now, every major noble house could forge their own elite gear. Market values tanked instantly. Putting the actual designs up for sale was the final blow that destroyed any remaining competition. Broke and buried in massive debt, Cedric vanished from the capital forever. Rumors quickly spread about his total mental collapse. Now watch this. Arthur was thrilled to see a former enemy completely ruined by his own greed and pride. One ghost from his past was gone, but then he spotted something else. A young girl tripped, spilling her tray. A cruel knight mocked her, calling her a clumsy fool for making such a mess in the middle of town. The brute threatened her, claiming he'd track her down outside the city walls to teach her a lesson in respect. Other knights whispered about his bullying, but nobody stepped in. That's when Arthur finally decided to intervene. Arthur marched over and promised the brute he'd slay him so many times his combat level would drop to 0. He called the crowd out for their cowardice. Arthur recognized the girl immediately. She was destined for future greatness. This was Lady Alara, a woman who would one day become a legendary S-tier hero and a vital powerhouse ally. In his past life, she served the order alongside Lady Seraphina. He knew he had to protect her right now. You saw that right. This quiet girl would eventually rank among the top 10 strongest warriors in the entire world. She never relied on noble handouts. Her sheer grit made her a legend. Arthur watched her intently as the bully raged. Arthur casually sipped her juice, complimenting her skill while the arrogant knight kept shouting insults at his face. Suddenly, Arthur vanished and reappeared behind the brute. With just one hand, he forced the massive warrior to his knees. Arthur laughed at how weak the brute truly was. The commoners watched in awe, wondering how a simple traveler could subdue a massive berserker so easily, though some warned that the royal guards were fast approaching. Arthur knows his own limits and held back. However, the brute grew furious, losing his mind as Arthur simply toyed with him. He activated a berserk rage, cracking the cobblestone floor as raw power surged through his muscles for a final strike. He swung his heavy claymore, but Arthur deflected the massive blade with 0 effort, standing perfectly still like a wall. The bully's own momentum sent him flying back. Arthur laughed, mocking his weak strike and asking if he'd skipped breakfast. Totally shamed, the brute charged blindly again. But then a royal guard intercepted him, declaring he was under immediate arrest. Assaulting someone within the city walls meant 12 hours in the dungeons. There was no escaping the kingdom's strict laws. The bully was dragged away in chains, screaming about his revenge while the entire town square laughed at him. He declared his vengeance would be swift. Alara wanted to reward Arthur, but as a beginner, she had no money. Arthur stared at her with an intense, serious gaze. Nervous, she quickly blurted out that she only sells herbal drinks. Handing over a silver crown, Arthur told her he needed a personal cook, and she was perfect for the job. He paid her salary in advance. Hesitant, she asked if cooking was truly the only thing he expected her to do. He told her to choose, trust him or face more bullies alone. With no other options, she decided to follow him. Arthur gave her extra funds for a kitchen and fresh supplies, ensuring she wouldn't have to work in streets again. She asked why a stranger would be so kind. Arthur simply told her he admired her work ethic and potential. She promised to work her hardest. Arthur's secret plan was to let her master cooking before training her as his cleric. He was thrilled. He just recruited a future saintess for a few coins, and soon she'd be a master of healing. Leaving the city, Arthur pulled out the ancient tome he took from the werewolf. He needed someone to translate the Elvish. The local library was hidden in the shadowed outskirts. As he arrived, a mysterious woman's voice caught him off guard. Arthur is 10 steps ahead, but it seems he's not the only one watching. You and I need to see what's next. All right, you and I are about to follow Alistair into a journey where every single step is a truly deadly trap. Alistair scoffs, asking if this is an ambush. Insulted by his reply, she orders her mercenary thugs to strike him. One move is all he needs, thunderous flash. His attackers hit the dirt. The woman realizes he has real talent. She admits Alistair is skilled and asks his destination, claiming she knows these borderlands better than anyone else. Alistair avoids her help, only wanting the library. She smiles, revealing she is actually the keeper of books. Suddenly changing into noble robes, she asks if he believes her now. Alistair is stunned by the sudden transformation. Noticing he is in desperate need of aid, she invites him to the library to discuss the mystery he carries. Stepping through a portal, 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 enters the royal library, but the place is a crumbling, dusty ruin of stone. The librarian asks why he came. He pulls out the journal, needing the forgotten tongues of old translated. Translation costs 30 silver. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 pays immediately, realizing this woman is motivated purely by cold, hard coin. Now watch closely here, because as she opens that book, she is struck by horror and throws it away. She screams as dark energy erupts. From the pages, the shadow of a great demon emerges, its level completely unknown. The beast roars, demanding to know who dares try to seal him. She snaps back that he is just a ghost. She summons a divine spear, but the ghost laughs. Her holy magic barely even scratches the ancient monster. Protecting herself with a golden sigil, she realizes this creature is far more dangerous than she first anticipated. Chanting a high-tier spell, she bathes the room in divine light, finally beginning to burn the demon away. The demon swears to find 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 later. Terrified, the system notifies him that he has been cursed by the abyss. His stats are halved, and the demon returns in 90 days. The keeper says 30 silver was a mistake. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 never expected such a trap. She warns that holding the journal any longer would have stolen his very soul. He is still in big trouble. If the curse is not broken, he will be a dead man in 90 days. She tells him to find and destroy the Book of Darkness. This is an epic tier quest with unknown rewards. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 asks for the Shadow Cave location. That info costs 10 gold, but she agrees to help him first. She agrees to be paid later, though she still demands 3 gold coins to break the deadly ancient curse. That is the exact amount he has. Now he must use the enchanted orb to reach the forest for moonstones. Now watch this. He needs 30 moonstones, but the forest is meant for knights twice his current strength. He prepares with potions and scrolls, hoping his gear is enough to succeed as he finally enters the woods. Entering the woods, he begins gathering materials. Since it is a level 9 forest, the monsters carry rare items. Aside from the beasts, 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 spots valuable iron ores and medicinal herbs scattered across the dark forest floor. For low-level knights, this place is known as the Land of Death. Survival here is anything but guaranteed. Facing a monster now would be fatal. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 activates an isolation scroll to vanish from the map entirely. Staying in stealth for 30 minutes, he slips past several deadly creatures without making a single sound. Moving deeper into the shadows, he finally locates the moonstones and begins his careful harvest. Below his ridge, a caravan of monsters passes by. Their main war camp must be hidden nearby. A camp means treasure chests. The first chest in a new zone always holds the most legendary rewards. No player has explored this deep yet. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 decides to gamble everything and find that hidden chest. It does not take long to find the camp. He spots the supply tent where the loot is kept. A massive guard blocks the entrance. Stealth will not work here, and a direct fight would alert the camp. He notices the beast heading toward a campfire to eat. This might be his only chance to move. Still cloaked in shadows, he creeps toward the cooking pot while the monster is distracted by its meal. The stew smells disgusting. He tosses in a handful of special spice to knock the guards out completely. The creatures collapse to the ground, completely knocked out by the spice. Now he has a clear path. Inside the tent, he finds piles of treasure. He starts looting piles of gold, rare ores, and equipment. He pulls out a silver moon helmet. With a full set, he will gain massive attribute bonuses to survive. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 prays to find the rest of his armor, but instead he pulls out the Ring of Insignificance. And trust me, compared to his old gear, this ring is legendary. But he better run, the monsters are waking. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 had no idea why the beast woke so early. Realizing he was under fire, he had to quickly burn a polymorph scroll, even though he wanted to save it for a High Lord. It bought him just enough time to escape. Before the effect ended, 1 second later, the creature's furious howl tore through the dense trees of the Shadowwood. All right, you and I are about to see if Alistair can pull this off with that magic ring of his. Alistair immediately began his risky mission. At the first chest, a monster spotted him, forcing a quick retreat, but he used another polymorph scroll. Though it was tough, he gathered the ritual items, the chests, and the full silver knight armor. He returned to the sage, thinking that his future adventures would be much easier with these powerful new items in hand. Surprised by his incredible speed, she asked if he had truly managed to collect every single one of the moon's stones. Pay attention here, because removing a curse like this is never as simple as it looks on the surface. She was impressed by his feats. Besides breaking curses, she mentioned the lunar blessing, an ancient rite that offered few extra perks. For a small fee of 3 gold coins, she offered to perform the ritual on him right then. Feeling cheated, Alistair said he would stick to the basic rite. Insisting on her offer, she asked if the boy had heard of the first night. Legend says he was cursed by the archfiend and suffered for a long time. She stopped to kick her magical music box, which was acting up. The warrior found a way to break the curse through the lunar blessing, gaining the strength to defeat the archfiend. She claimed this was a massive discount for him. Alistair reluctantly agreed to the price. Once they were outside, she told him to stay perfectly still for the ritual. Alistair asked if there were any dangers. The woman replied that even though she had never actually done this before, she was highly skilled and always praised by her masters. She prepared to start, but realized she forgot the first prayer. Alistair started to panic, but the sage told him to be quiet since there were absolutely no refunds for this service. After checking her book, she started chanting. A magic circle glowed beneath his feet along with swirling orbs of pure energy. The curse began to lift from his body. Suddenly, a dark shadow emerged from his mouth and started to take shape. And yeah, I know what you are thinking. That ghost looks familiar. It is the same one that nearly killed him. The demon declared this was not enough to loosen his grip on Alistair. The sage explained it was just a clone. If he could defeat the clone, the curse would finally be broken. The demon vowed he would never lose to a human. Their swords clashed with violent force. Despite being a mere ghost, the creature was just as powerful as Alistair himself was. Seraphina warned that the specter was at full power. If Alistair took a direct hit, he would die. He was violently thrown back by the specter's blade. Alistair gathered every bit of his strength to resist the next heavy blow. The situation was becoming far too difficult, as this demon was much stronger. All he could do was play defense. The demon tried to tempt the boy to surrender his soul, promising infinite power. Refusing the offer, the battle continued. Alistair needed to stay completely focused. Any tiny mistake would be fatal. The specter's attacks were becoming far too powerful now. Even when blocked, they pushed him back. Giving up on words, the demon launched a final, devastating strike to end him. He used the lightning strike against Alistair. The impact caused a massive explosion, leaving the demon standing in the smoke. Alistair survived, but his health was almost gone. The demon advanced for the kill, but his blade stopped near Alistair's face. He was frozen, trapped inside a hidden magic circle. This clever trick enraged the demon even more than before. Smiling, Alistair said the beast had missed his trap. While in the woods, he had found a scroll for this circle. He had not expected to find such a high-level relic in the outer woods. That magic was perfect against demons. During the fight, he had secretly handed the scroll to his clone. The clone followed the plan perfectly while he distracted him. It needed to activate every point of the circle. The process took time, and he had barely managed to finish it. It was a shame to waste such a rare relic on a mere shadow, but he had no other choice left. Ready to end this, Alistair sliced the demon into 2 pieces, then shredded it into dust as it faded away. So Alistair survived. You and I just saw him beat the impossible and claim some truly epic rewards. He obtained the Mask of the Abyss, which allowed him to change his entire identity whenever he needed a disguise. His investment paid off perfectly. He could now hide his true self while working as a master smith in town. The sage declared the ritual a success. He would no longer be haunted by the archfiend's curse. Exhausted, she needed rest. Find her in Silverford, Alistair sat thinking. All right, you and I are about to see our hero Alistair grind for levels before his meeting with Lady Snow. In the capital, mercenaries were arguing over rising gold rates. High taxes made it tough for anyone who wasn't a noble. One loudmouth was even bragging about selling his gear for enough gold to live like a king for 2 whole months. Alistair didn't care. He finally hit the level required to equip the full silver moon plate armor, and he looked legendary. Suddenly, that annoying thug who harasses lower ranks blocked his path. This time, he brought his much bigger brother for backup. The newcomer is Sir Ironheart, a notorious knight from a distant kingdom who recently joined the local server. He's an elite veteran who quickly established his own warband, the Iron Legion, becoming a major player in the capital. In his past life, Alistair saw this man crush Blazefang twice. He's actually a pretty formidable opponent for most warriors. But with his new divine gear, beating him would be easier than breathing. Alistair just ignored them and kept on walking. The thugs were furious. The small-time jerk screamed for him to stop, demanding they settle their blood feud right here. Alistair played dumb, pretending he had no idea who these losers even were. He honestly couldn't be bothered with them. Then he remembered. He called the guy out for harassing Lady Violet, surprised the coward was already out of the dungeons. Hearing this, the leader told his subordinate to shut up. He didn't want the Legion's reputation tarnished by some street harasser. Still, he demanded 20 silver coins as a blood tax for Alistair, beating up one of his men earlier that day. Now here's where it gets interesting. Pay attention to the crowd. Everyone assumed Alistair was dead meat against a level 5. Other noble houses watched from the shadows, telling their knights to only step in if Alistair was about to be executed. They wanted to see what our hero would do. Alistair just laughed, saying 20 silver coins was basically pocket change for him. He pulled out a pouch with 50 silver coins. Sir Ironheart's eyes practically popped out of his head. He's incredibly greedy. Seeing the coin, the knight became oddly friendly. He even suggested they stay in touch, quickly changing his tune for the money. He even told his men he'd personally protect Alistair in the future. Anyone who messed with Alistair was messing with him. He reached out for a trade, but instead of gold, black magic chains suddenly erupted from the cobblestone floor beneath him. The knight was absolutely livid. He screamed, demanding to know why Alistair was attacking him in the middle of a safe zone. In a flash, Alistair unleashed a flurry of steel. Attacking in the city usually brings the royal guards down on your head. Looking at the rest of the cowards, he asked who else wanted the 50 silver. The jerk yelled that Alistair was finished. Since he killed someone in the city, the guards arrived instantly. Everyone leaned in to see how Alistair would survive this. The bully ran to a guard, crying like a spoiled child. He begged them to throw Alistair into the darkest dungeon. He was so sure Alistair was done for. Finally, the man who humiliated him would get exactly what he deserved, rot. But the guard bowed. He recognized Alistair as the Demon Hunter Lord, a high-ranking noble with special rights in the kingdom. For killing a commoner, a noble only has to pay a 4 silver fine or spend a few hours in jail. Nobles enjoy massive privileges. If a commoner even insults a lord, they can be thrown in irons or even executed instantly. The guards simply ignore a noble's dirty work. Alistair calmly handed over 20 silver coins as a generous down payment. You saw that, right? He is paying for 4 more kills in advance. This cold statement chilled the bullies to the bone. They tried to run, realizing they were marked for death. Meanwhile, in a dangerous war zone, warriors were clearing out monsters. The strategy was simple: wipe out the weakest pests first. The monsters that posed the least threat were systematically exterminated. A heavy shield bearer held the front line. He stayed sharp, shouting a warning to his friend about a surprise flank attack. The girl looked back and froze. The monster's claws were already mid-swing, and she was in a state of pure panic. Suddenly, a voice yelled for her to duck. She hit the floor just in time, barely escaping a gruesome certain death. The legendary Lady Snow arrived, telling the girl to retreat and rest if she didn't have the stomach for more. Inspired, the girl charged back into the fray anyway. She started weaving through the beasts, slicing them up like raw fish. Lady Snow was on another level. She was subduing these second-tier monsters as if she was just taking a morning stroll. Her raw power was terrifying to behold. The creatures actually started backing away, literally fearing for their miserable little lives. Snow didn't show an ounce of mercy. She continued her beautiful massacre, hitting them with a relentless barrage of sword strikes. With one massive swing, she annihilated every single creature within reach. The entire battlefield went silent as she stood there. Suddenly, the other knights screamed a warning. The boss was charging up its ultimate ability, a devastating energy attack. And trust me, you and I are about to see Lady Snow show everyone why she is truly a legend. All right, you and I are jumping right into a high-stakes boss raid, where everything hangs by a thread. Instantly, the mages unleashed their most devastating spells, turning the entire battlefield into a sea of fire. With their heavy strikes landing true, Lady Snow gathered her officers and asked for a casualty report. In total, 5 noble knights had fallen. Snow ordered the news shared while declaring a brief rest. Before they could advance toward the canyon, a shimmering portal tore through the air right beside them. Now pay attention, because just when they think they are safe, a mysterious portal rips open. A hooded figure stepped out, his face hidden beneath shadows as the knights drew their swords. He calmly asked to introduce himself. His name was Lord Cinder, a man with a massive reputation. Because of his fame in the capital, he had managed to get his hands on rare teleportation. The soldiers recognized him instantly as the legendary Master Smith, whose prestige was growing every single day. Lord Cinder greeted the leader of House 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅, knowing they were desperate for powerful new allies. Without a Master Smith, Snow was willing to pay any price to secure his legendary services. However, her bodyguard warned that he could be a fake, since many pretenders had tried this before. Countless scammers had attempted to steal Lord Cinder's identity, causing chaos for the noble houses. One group lost their entire treasury in 30 minutes because a fake smith crafted nothing but junk. Snow remained calm, sensing that this man was either the real master or a high-level professional. Cinder made it clear he would only work as an equal partner, not as a servant of the house. A haughty blonde knight found him far too arrogant, but Snow wanted to know the source of his confidence. Without a word, he revealed several rare forging blueprints, leaving the entire group absolutely stunned in silence. Boldly, Lord Cinder asked if he had finally proven he was worthy of a seat at the table. The skeptical blonde wondered how he had secured so many ancient designs in such a short time. Cinder simply smiled and told her it was a trade secret. 2 hours earlier, he was preparing. Back at the stone anvil, he needed to provide 5 frost brews to Ironbeard to claim his reward. Arthur already had the items ready, thanks to the special chilled juices prepared by Lady Violet. Ironbeard was so impressed by the flavor that his respect for the young man shot through the roof. As the old dwarf finished the drinks, he looked sad, fearing he would never taste them ever again. Arthur promised him an endless supply, earning Ironbeard's total devotion and 10 more advanced blueprints. You and I both know she cannot let a talent like this slip through her fingers. She immediately accepted his terms, shocking her subordinates who couldn't believe she was giving in so easily. Suddenly, Cinder turned away, declaring he was no longer interested in dealing with people so suspicious. Snow hurried to apologize, begging him to reconsider while promising she never meant to cause any offense. The blonde knight couldn't stand seeing her lady humble herself before a common smith like this. But Snow was certain he was the key to making house, where Rob arose the strongest power in the kingdom. Lord Cinder stopped and looked back, praising her wisdom. His help would come, but for a price. Snow hoped their bond would be unbreakable, though his handshake felt strangely familiar to her. She informed him they were heading to the canyon and asked if he was interested in joining them. Cinder agreed, as his own quest required him to recover the legendary heart of the Colossus. This thrilled Snow, as she finally had the chance to see if his skill matched his big mouth. One girl joked that smiths were weak in battle, so bringing him along might just be a burden. Another seemed excited, hoping to watch the arrogant smith get humiliated by monsters. Above the canyon, rank 6 harpies filled the sky, and Snow warned everyone to stay sharp. A knight mentioned that these harpies snatched people into the clouds before dropping them to their deaths. Lord Cinder remarked that only someone with terrible footwork would ever get caught by such a bird. An irritated girl called him arrogant, but she was suddenly snatched up by massive talons and dragged skyward. Well, you and I know he's right. You and I are jumping into a world where one wrong scream can get you killed instantly. The party's knight lunged to save the girl, but he was too slow to catch her before she fell. Lady Beatrice launched a fireball at the harpy, forcing the beast to drop its captive right out of the sky. Now in free fall, the girl plummeted toward the earth. She hit the ground hard, barely clinging to life. Beatrice just smirked, mocking the girl for her pathetic display while she lay there broken in the dirt. Instead of thanking them, the girl blamed Lucien, the blacksmith, claiming his presence had distracted her. Lucien realized she was an expert at playing the victim. Suddenly, another harpy charged straight for him. He didn't even flinch, already knowing the beast's path. Before it could touch him, he drew his blade. With one clean strike, the monster was dead. The girl watched in shock, dodging the harpy's falling corpse. Now watch closely, because Lucien is about to show them what a real master can actually do. She claimed he just got lucky, proving she was even more of a fool than everyone expected. Her shouting made her a target again. She barely dodged the attack, desperate to save her reputation. A companion finished the beast, and gold coins scattered. She stared at her savior, completely stunned by his skill. Lucien didn't hesitate to save her. He was proving that his sword was far more dangerous than his hammer. His efficiency left the party impressed. Lady Seraphina watched him, her mind filled with growing suspicion. She only knew one person with that level of mastery, and he definitely wasn't a humble blacksmith. Lucien told them to stay focused. They needed to grab the loot and keep moving immediately. His brutal strength made the remaining harpies flee. Beatrice noticed this and started feeling very uneasy. She felt it was impossible to encounter another monster, like Lord Fang, in the same lifetime. They finally reached the crater where a meteorite was said to have fallen, guarded by golems. Seraphina questioned the mission's difficulty. Lucien simply stated he was here for the heart of the Colossus. The leader warned that a direct fight was suicide. Facing those monsters meant an unwinnable battle for them. Their only chance was to pull them one by one. They immediately started planning a strategy. You and I both know this plan is risky, but let's see how Lucien handles it. Beatrice felt insulted when Lucien told them to calm down. She thought he was doubting her magic. She explained that the golems were too fast. You needed agility over 14 points to outrun them. Only 2 people were fast enough to act as bait. Lucien told them exactly where to lead the horde. Once gathered, he would handle the rest. Seraphina agreed to the plan but refused his help. She believed no golem could catch her. However, dodging their mechanical strikes was proving to be a nightmare. The Gearforged were incredibly swift. Luckily, the 2 scouts managed to lead the entire horde into the trap. Beatrice was terrified, unable to imagine how Lucien planned to execute all those dangerous creatures at once. Lucien pulled out a magical scroll. He placed it on the ground and began preparing a massive enchantment. Beatrice immediately sensed the scale of the magic. Lucien's sword began to glow with an intense, burning energy. With his blade coated in power, he waited for the golems to close in. He raised his weapon high. He chanted a second layer spell, the Flame Blade Dance. Several fireballs began to form in the sky. The fire rained down on the mechanical horde. These powerful monsters were getting shredded like they were nothing. The Gearforged were devastated. They never imagined they were walking into such a one-sided slaughter. The monsters were caught off guard by the devastating attack. Even the players had to brace themselves. They held onto the ground to avoid being swept away by the violent gusts of wind. Seraphina was intrigued by this display of power. The battlefield was now covered in items waiting for collection. Lucian noticed he had hit level 6. His companions reached level 7 from the massive experience gain. The equipment was much weaker than what he could craft, so he decided not to pick anything up. Seraphina wanted to repay his kindness, but Lucian said the escort was already more than enough. "Trust me, you and I are about to see if Lucian can survive the rest of this journey alone." Even the arrogant Beatrice finally spoke in a much friendlier tone. "All right, you and I are about to see Alaric turn down a massive dungeon invite because he had better things to do." He simply said he was too busy to talk, a cold response that fit his rising fame in the kingdom. Even when a high-ranking noble lady sent a friend request, he ignored her, leaving the girl absolutely fuming with rage. Soon, he arrived at a massive iron gate, using a special relic key gifted to him by a legendary captain. As the key turned, ancient magic surged and the massive doors began to grind open, drawing eyes from across the lands. Monsters nearby sensed the lone knight and lunged to strike, but Alaric wasn't planning on wasting a single second here. He snatched his key back and charged through the threshold as the system recognized his discovery of a hidden zone. Welcome to the Steel Keep of Barrington. Now, his main objective was to secure the legendary steel heart buried deep within. While scouting the area, he entered a grand hall where a titanic cauldron belched thick, black smoke into the air. Planning his move, he leaped from the high ledge, using his gravity stone to land softly before finding a secret passage. Inside a small hidden alcove, he spotted exactly what he wanted: a small, ancient chest pulsing with magical energy. Now pay attention, because as he reached for the treasure, a massive explosion erupted that should have killed him instantly. Normally, that would be game over, but our guy used a shadow clone to take the hit instead of himself. Relieved that his caution paid off, he approached the real loot. Inside the chest sat the legendary Black Rock shield. Its defense stats were insane for a level 10 knight, making it the best shield available in the entire kingdom. The chest also held a mastery die, a legendary item from his past life that could randomly boost his core attributes. He tossed the die casually, claiming he didn't even need the luck, but his careless throw triggered a critical roll. He hit the jackpot, doubling his reward and boosting his sword mastery by a massive 40 points in one go. After grabbing some life-saving scrolls for the future, he heard strange metallic noises echoing through the dark halls of the keep. Realizing the guardians were waking up, Alaric knew he had to escape fast, so he began his daring exit through the ruins. He dove into a deep subterranean lake, swimming through narrow tunnels before finally surfacing in the main fortress courtyard. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. His trial period for the magical interface was coming to a very abrupt end. After all that grinding, his time was up. Knowing he had already built a massive fortune, he decided to log out. Back in the real world, a bully from the House of Shadows was busy harassing Alaric's friend, the young Cedric. The bully claimed Cedric should have joined their house, but the boy stood firm, saying he was already in a guild. The rival laughed, pointing out there were no guilds nearby, and Cedric didn't even know their new team name yet. The bully assumed Cedric failed his entrance exams and offered fake help, noticing the boy was still using basic gear. He mocked the boy's current group for being poor, promising a high-performance crown worth 20,000 gold if he switched sides. You and I both know what's coming next. Alaric finally shows up to put this arrogant jerk in his place. He introduced himself as the leader of the Iron Crest workshop, asking if there was some kind of trouble here. The bully turned hostile immediately, sneering at Alaric for even thinking he could afford to start his own noble guild. He aggressively shoved a finger into Alaric's face, but our hero wasn't about to let that disrespect slide for a second. In a flash, Alaric grabbed the man's hand, leaving him screaming in agony on the floor with a broken finger. Alaric ignored the screaming jerk and told Cedric that their elite-level equipment and magical gear had finally arrived today. He promised the best latency-free crystals, ensuring their new base would be a fortress of pure luxury. The injured bully kept mocking them, claiming they were just faking their wealth to look important in front of others. He warned that even if Alaric was rich, the House of Shadows would eventually crush anyone who dared defy them. Cedric fired back, revealing they were backed by Lady Genevieve of the Silver Order, making the bully's face turn pale. The mention of such a powerful noble house made the jerk nervous, but he still tried to keep up his act. He muttered that Alaric was probably a reject, otherwise he wouldn't be desperate enough to build a workshop from scratch. The fuming bully demanded the name of this unknown workshop, and Alaric calmly told him it was called Iron Crest. He even mockingly invited the bully to join, who then ran back to his master to report the total failure. The Shadow Commander was furious at the outcome, especially since Cedric was the only recruit who had actually refused them. It turns out Cedric was being watched by another arrogant noble student who thought he was better than everyone else. And that is where we leave it. Trust me, you and I are going to love seeing Alaric humble these fools. All right, let's dive into a world where a failed knight turns the tables on the entire kingdom. Dismissing them as a joke, he tells Arthur not to waste breath on peasants and stay focused. Their eyes were on a 20-man ruin raid, aiming to be the first house to conquer that abyss. A tiny band of 6 was no threat. In his past life, Felix had been obsessed with forbidden magic. He'd ignored his studies until his parents collapsed from exhaustion, leaving the family drowning in massive royal debts. Felix swore that would never happen again. He sent them gold, claiming he'd found work as a scribe. He begged them to rest, then turned his focus toward his failing grades at the Royal Military Academy. His classmates stared in shock, since Felix was infamous for ditching every lecture and training session for weeks. Some scoffed, wondering if a professor had finally summoned him, while the noble girls looked away in disgust. Felix expected this. Nobody liked a failing commoner, yet one girl, Clara, actually walked over to him. She was the sole exception. Even back then, when everyone despised him, she was the only one who helped. She was worried about the council meeting, but a loud-mouthed noble decided to barge into their conversation. This was Philip. In the old timeline, he'd married into wealth and used his influence to ruin lives. He rose through the ministry and became a powerhouse by investing in magic crystals, eventually betraying the shadows. This academy meeting was a turning point. In the past, Philip and the others had completely sabotaged Felix. The rumors said Felix just wanted to graduate without ever attending class or putting in any real work. The students prepared to vote on his expulsion. Philip sneered, calling Felix a useless peasant who didn't belong. Everything was playing out exactly like before, but this time, Felix was ready for their little council meeting. Clara tried to defend him, but Philip shut her down, saying a lady's opinion carried no weight here. Felix spoke up, telling Philip he disagreed with their little circus. The noble's face turned red with pure rage. Now watch this part carefully. This is where the Academy's star athlete gets a massive reality check. Terror filled the room as Felix stared them down with cold eyes, ordering that trash to move aside. With a single strike, the noble was left sprawled on the stone floor, out cold. Felix seemed genuinely disappointed. 2 figures watched from the doorway. Surprisingly, one was Julian, Felix's self-proclaimed rival and the top student. Clara hadn't expected Julian to return to campus today. Julian coldly asked if she was familiar with this peasant. Felix's ex-girlfriend was standing right there with her new man. Felix was already annoyed enough as it was. He'd lost his rank as the lead knight, and now this mediocre student was trying to act tough. Julian decided it was time to put Felix in his place again. He declared he'd teach him a real lesson. As he stepped forward, he got a strange feeling. He knew this face from somewhere but couldn't place it. Clara ordered Julian to leave the hall, reminding him that he wasn't even part of this specific nightly class. Julian laughed it off, claiming Clara just wanted his attention. Felix stepped between them before he could touch her. Fighting for free is boring. Julian proposed a bet, 1,000 gold crowns, and Felix licks his boots. Felix shook his head and raised the stakes to 10,000 crowns. He wasn't playing around this time. His ex couldn't believe he had that kind of wealth. Felix just shrugged, showing a balance that silenced them. Julian smirked, thinking this was going to be the easiest 10,000 gold he had ever made in his life. They entered the dueling arena. Everyone expected Felix to be crushed. His ex-girlfriend just rolled her eyes in pity. Julian saw the blank look on Felix's face and assumed the poor kid was finally regretting his big mouth. You see that look? That's decades of combat experience talking. Felix is playing on a completely different level. The only problem was his current body. He had the technique, but lacked the stamina and raw physical strength. He had to aim for the gaps in the armor, the vital points that muscles alone couldn't protect. Felix smiled. He had 100 ways to win this. Enraged by that grin, Julian lunged forward with everything. Julian was inches away from grabbing him. Felix didn't blink. He just waited for the perfect window to strike. Crack, a precise palm strike hit Julian's throat. His windpipe tightened instantly, cutting off his air supply completely. The noble clutched his neck, gasping for air. He couldn't understand how a failure like Felix had even landed that. And trust me, you and I are about to see this kingdom change forever. Don't blink. That strike immediately disoriented Arthur, leaving him off balance. With enough force, a move like that could end him. You and I are about to see how this academy reject suddenly became the strongest fighter in the room. His secret, rare physical enhancement elixirs. The old Arthur could never afford them, but his limits were finally breaking. After class, Lady Alina caught up with him. She needed to know if this was the same boy she once knew. Feeling a bit awkward, she mentioned a grand royal event in 10 days filled with the kingdom's most important lords. She suggested it was a good opportunity. Arthur accepted, knowing his new life demanded he step into the spotlight. Back in his room, he realized he was finally being included in the inner circles of the high noble houses. But status costs gold. To prepare, he needed to earn much more money by hunting within the dangerous magical rifts. His equipment hummed with power. The resonance from his gear allowed him to move with a lethal, almost surgical precision. Arthur dived back into the rift. He still needed the heart of the behemoth to finish his quest and gain strength. With his upgraded gear, the transition between worlds was now instantaneous. He was ready for whatever was waiting for him. Now pay attention, because he just stumbled upon the heart of the behemoth and a mysterious creature waiting for him. A twisted, levitating jester appeared, mocking his presence. It decided to feed Arthur's bones to its pet for a celebration. From the shadows, it summoned a level 15 three-headed hellhound, an elite monster capable of absolute carnage and total destruction. Arthur didn't remember this beast. His presence was changing the flow of time itself. No matter, he would kill it. The beast unleashed a torrent of white-hot flames. Everything was incinerated as the monster waited for its prey to burn. Arthur used his gravity ring to dodge the heat, intending to strike the creature from above with a surprise attack. But the monster was too smart. He was caught off guard by a second strike before he could even land. A blast of frost hit him directly, draining 30% of his life and locking his movements in solid ice. Before he could even assess the danger, he was already the target of the beast's third and most powerful attack. The dark jester grinned, certain of his victory, but he was delighted to see Arthur was still remarkably persistent. I know what you're thinking. Game over, not even close. Arthur was still alive, and that really surprised the jester. Only his soul shields saved him. The jester knew this and announced he would dispel them with a high-grade magical effect. Suddenly, his defenses were gone. Arthur was left completely vulnerable against a beast that showed no signs of stopping now. This twisted jester wasn't a fighter, but his magic was designed to cause massive headaches for any unlucky knight. Arthur knew he couldn't waste time fighting. His true goal was to secure the heart of the behemoth and escape. But every time he reached for the relic, the hellhound lunged, repelling him with a force that rattled his armor. The beast was faster than any animal should be, taking 60% of Arthur's life before he could finish his thoughts. Massive fireballs rained down. He rolled through the dirt, barely escaping the explosions that were turning the room into hell. Then disaster struck. His boots were frozen for 3 seconds, rendering him immobile and a target for the next strike. A direct hit would mean defeat. He had to think fast. He remembered the resistance scrolls hidden in his inventory. With limited time, he couldn't afford to choose carefully. He grabbed a scroll and activated it on pure survival instinct. The jester watched with glee, fully aware that if Arthur chose the wrong element, the battle would be over instantly. A massive explosion of fire occurred, but Arthur remained unharmed. His luck had saved him in that life or death moment. Soon the jester would discover if that was sheer luck or true skill. A physical attack was now heading his way. Arthur triggered his gravity ring once more, warping space to dodge the attack and lunge straight toward the terrified jester. The jester's eyes went wide. He wasn't laughing anymore. Arthur was closing the distance with the fury of a god. Now in control of the offense, Arthur was resolved to make the jester pay for every single action he took. A massive explosion followed, and the jester was hit hard. Arthur had finally cracked the hellhound's predictable attack pattern. Elemental attacks followed by a physical strike. With that knowledge, defending himself became much easier for the young knight. With the jester defeated, the hellhound stopped its assault. Without someone giving orders, the beast seemed to lose all interest. The threat was over. Arthur safely approached the glowing heart of the behemoth, standing at the center of the fortress. He extended his hand, and the ancient relic shrank to fit his palm, granting him massive rewards and experience points. Since he couldn't use the high-tier loot yet, Arthur decided to use them as raw materials for his main weapon. And trust me, you and I will want to see what this legendary upgraded sword can really do next. All right, you and I are about to see Fen become a true master of the blade. The deal with Lady Gwendolyn Snow was a hit, and now Fen could bring his allies along. They recognized him instantly. Fen chose Blackwood and the Iron Shield Knight for their pure strategic value. Both were hyped for Fen's investment. This was the first official campaign for their young mercenary house. Fresh supplies arrived via the royal courier system as they reached a completely desolate and haunting graveyard. The Martial Alliance was already there, aiming for 5th place while the Celestial Crown took 4th. The Assassin Brotherhood stood in 3rd, while 2nd place went to those treacherous scoundrels from House Shadow. And in 1st place, no surprise, the elite Ouroboros Legion. The bystanders watched in absolute, silent awe. Everyone was stunned by the high-tier gear. The grand expedition was stalled, waiting for one last warrior. A sneering blonde noble wondered if he'd show, while a mage mocked him for hiding in fear. But look at this. Just as the insults finished, a brilliant teleportation signal began to manifest. The crowd gasped as Fen finally appeared with his companions. The outcast had actually shown up. The trio marched toward the waiting lords. One noble asked if this was the man who crushed Shadow. The leader of that rival guild was fuming. He glared at Fen, his face twisted in rage. He wanted revenge now, but his commander demanded silence. They had to conquer the cemetery first. Secretly, that leader swore to bury Fen himself. In his past life, he was a legend. Gwendolyn Snow stated her house would lead, with the system distributing rewards based on what players needed. Fen immediately called her out. This wasn't the deal. He was supposed to get priority on blueprints. The mage snapped back, saying things change when gear is this good. Fen wasn't as important now. She even said he should be grateful. Gwendolyn apologized, but claimed she had to prioritize her team. Though he was far from happy, Fen decided to let fate play its hand for this quest. He knew her real goal was to break him. This was a very difficult woman to handle. Under the glow of a blood-red moon, the knights prepared. The long march into darkness began. After walking for miles, some men felt uneasy as the road seemed to stretch on forever. Fen assured them the exit was near. The arrogant mage kept claiming no one could match Gwendolyn. To be fair, her strategy was perfect. Her precise orders kept them away from the deadliest beasts. There hadn't been a single casualty yet, but for Fen, this dungeon felt far too easy. Suddenly, piercing screams tore through the air. "You and I know that sound. Real trouble is here." Gwendolyn recognized her scouting team. She demanded a report, but the players died before they could speak. Panic set in. She ordered the frontline and healers to prepare for an immediate, brutal combat. Fen pointed toward the cemetery mist. A massive, terrifying silhouette was looming over the terrified group. No one knew what this monster was. Fen roared for everyone with shields to activate their skills. His shield knight followed the order, using a holy blessing and urging others to do the same. From the thick fog, massive black stakes shot out. One pierced a knight's head with lethal force. The shield knight watched in horror as his comrade turned to dust. Gwendolyn's worry began to grow. The guardian was an elite beast that healed while hiding in the mist. It was a nightmare. She ordered a full retreat. It was too dangerous, but Fen told them to hold their ground. He instructed them to protect the healers, while the rest of the team regrouped for an attack. The shield knight obeyed promptly. That noble couldn't believe anyone would listen to Fen over Gwendolyn. As the monster charged a massive blow, Gwendolyn desperately ordered the healers to restore the front line. The creature unleashed a violent energy blast, causing a massive explosion that rocked the entire battlefield. Through the thick smoke, a shadow stood tall. The shield knight had actually survived that insane hit. Fen praised his friend's grit. That opening allowed him to close the distance without being seen. Through the smoke, the shield knight survived the hit, and Fen praised his teammate for such a heroic stand. "Trust me, you and I are about to watch Fen end this monster with a single, merciless strike. Stick with me. We're about to see a monster lose its hand and its edge." Lady Alara doesn't wait for orders. She lunges forward, striking the creature with everything she has. Devastating explosions engulf the monster. She's certain nothing could survive that kind of overwhelming magical fire. But Ilias knows better. He warns the group that the thick mist hasn't cleared yet. Stay alert. He's right. Shadows shift in the fog. They realize this isn't just one fight, it's an ambush. Undead hussars emerge from the gloom. They aren't strong, but they keep rising no matter how many die. Two monsters corner a squire, knocking her down. House Obsidian's forces are getting absolutely shredded out here. They need to retreat before they're wiped out. Death's penalty is heavy, but Gwendolyn refuses to back down. Ilias steps up. No retreat. He tells them he can win this, but only if they follow him. Lady Alara is stubborn as a mule. She knows Ilias is elite, but her pride is stinging. Despite her glare, Gwendolyn agrees. She hands the command over to Ilias. The tide is about to turn. Alara is fuming. She hates taking orders from a commoner, but Ilias isn't playing games anymore. These undead are just a distraction. They aren't the real target. He barks orders at the mage. He tells Alara to blast the empty space with fire. That's the only way to clear the fog. "Get ready to move on my mark," he warns. Gwendolyn wonders if he's a secret veteran. Alara scoffs, claiming he's still nothing without her power. She unleashes her ultimate technique, Flame Tempest. A massive inferno incinerates the undead, carving a path through the dark and heavy mist. Ilias charges into the flames, urging the rest to follow. His companions don't hesitate for a second. Obsidian's knights follow his lead. Some notice the creatures are still clawing at their heels. "Don't look back," Ilias commands. It's been 3 hours, and they're nowhere near the end of this. Elsewhere, the lead assassin is kicked out of the dungeon, empty-handed. His team failed the first trial. They lost 3 levels in penalty. Back inside, Cole and the others are still sprinting from the dead. Cole trips in a panic, certain he's about to be eaten. Then, he realizes the footsteps stopped. "Now pay attention." Ilias explains that monsters have zones. They've finally crossed the border to safety. But don't celebrate yet. Something far worse is waiting for them just beyond the next dark archway. Look for yourselves. A massive, skull-topped portal looms over them. They've finally reached the heart of the tomb. Their group is smaller now. Many didn't make it. Elias asks if the ladies are getting scared. "Don't underestimate us," Gwendolyn snaps. "Their friends sacrificed everything to get them here. They won't fail now." Elias pushes open the heavy gates. A small team steps into the shadows of the final chamber. In the center sits a nightmare, the ruined Duke, a level 6 boss with 120 million health. That's an insane number. Only by killing this thing can they escape this cursed dungeon alive. It's win or die, no other way out. Gwendolyn asks Elias if they even have a prayer. Elias looks troubled. This isn't what he expected. This boss shouldn't be here at this stage. You saw that, right? The difficulty just spiked. Either the world changed or they're moving too fast. Alara thinks they're doomed since Elias is silent. He suggests a tactic called the crossfire formation. They've never heard of it. He says if they execute it perfectly, they have a 20% chance. Alara loses hope at those odds, but Gwendolyn is ready to gamble. They have to try. The knights rush in, drawing the Duke's aggro. They strike hard before falling back in a blur. This lets the archers rain fire. Once the boss turns, the melee fighters strike again. It sounds simple on paper, but Gwendolyn knows dodging these attacks will be a total nightmare. One hit could mean death. They must be ready to sacrifice themselves for the sake of the team. Alara hates the idea of treating friends like fodder, but the Shield Knight doesn't hesitate. He'll do whatever it takes. As long as Gwendolyn leads, he'll march straight into the fire. Even the lady herself is ready to die for them. Their lives now rest on Elias' plan. So what do we take from this? Real leadership means being the first one to take the hit. All right, stick with me as we watch Lady Alara prove why she is the true heart of this elite squad. It is victory or a cold grave. The beast clenches its blade, preparing a strike meant to end it all. The steel cuts through Alara, but wait, it is a mirage. She is already gone, leaving the monster striking at thin air. From a distance, she signals the mages. Cedric locks in, focusing his mana for a devastating magical barrage against the beast. Before he can even blink, a massive pillar of holy fire erupts, swallowing the creature in pure white heat. Sneering at Cedric, Lady Beatrice mocks him. "We are here to slay a demon, not give it a tickle," she scoffs. Despite that massive hit, the nightmare isn't over. Fueled by pure rage, the beast lunges forward with terrifying, bloodthirsty speed. But Alistair intercepts it mid-dash. He lands a brutal blow on its ankle, halting the monster's momentum in its tracks. The beast's movement drops by 50%, but then the monster begins acting strangely, as if preparing a new, dark ritual. It slams the earth with godlike power, shattering the stone floor. The shockwave sends the mages tumbling back, defenseless. Now watch closely, because this opening is exactly what the monster wanted to crush its helpless, immobile targets. Alistair shouts a warning as the beast hurls its massive blade. It is a projectile meant to kill every last player. The blade screams toward Beatrice, who realizes she is far too slow to escape, but Alistair activates his gravity ring. He dives between her and certain death, raising his steel shield to brace for the ultimate, bone-crushing collision. The blade clangs off his steel, embedding deep into the dirt. Alistair's selfless act was completely unexpected for Beatrice. His friends watch in horror. Even though he blocked it, the sheer force of the impact has left him badly broken. Alistair stumbles, trying to stay upright under the heavy gaze of Lady Alara and the rest of the elite squad. She never expected their most prepared warrior to be the first one to fall in this brutal kingdom dungeon. Alistair's body begins to fade away. Before he dies, the healer catches him with a powerful, ancient incantation. The warrior's life is restored. He is stunned. The woman who only criticized him just saved his entire soul. She knew Alistair couldn't die here. Healed by her magic, he offers a quiet word of sincere thanks. The moment is brief. The beast reclaims its sword, and you and I can see this battle is just starting. The shield bearer tries to draw its fury, but the monster completely ignores him, eyes locked on a single, specific prey. From the shadows, Lady Alara unleashes a flurry of strikes. Still, the creature doesn't even flinch at her presence. Its bloodlust is hyper-focused on 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅. Until he is dead, this monster won't look at another living soul in the room. With half its health gone, the beast's behavior shifts. It screams, summoning dark clones to swarm the battlefield at once. Even with the chaos, 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 sees a chance. He prepares to strike the main body with every ounce of his power. A fire spell blasts the boss, distracting it. The mages are doing everything possible to keep the pressure on high. The clones confuse the beast, creating gaps in its armor. It is the perfect opening for the team to push their advantage. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 controls his clones with expert precision, dazing the beast. Its irritation is quickly boiling over into pure, chaotic madness. Its rage hits a breaking point as it misses every strike. That is the signal. The final phase has begun. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 and his allies tighten their grip. They are ready to march into the heart of the storm one last time. In this phase, the boss is faster, stronger, and more aggressive. One wrong move now means certain death for everyone. If any player falls, the beast will feast on their soul and heal. No one can die, or their struggle is over. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 orders the group to stagger their attacks. Don't draw its gaze all at once, he commands his loyal friends. Lady Alara tells the others to fall back. The retreat order spreads fast through the ranks of the elite squad. Only 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 and Alara remain. The enraged knight delivers bone-shattering strikes, but our hero knows the pattern by heart now. He counters every opening he finds in the creature's guard. It is a deadly dance between a man and a monster. As 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 finishes his combo, Lady Alara leaps in. She strikes with the grace of a winter storm, aiming for blood. She slips behind the beast, burying her blade in its neck. The monster's health bar plummets toward 0 in an instant. The creature drops its sword, lunging out with a massive clawed hand. Alara cannot move fast enough to escape the grasp. She cannot react fast enough as the monster grabs her, hurling her violently against the cold stone floor, utterly defenseless. Defenseless, she braces for the killing blow. But 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 is already moving, channeling his gravity magic for a desperate save. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 activates his ring, using gravity to yank the girl away from the monster's crushing blow at the last second. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 stands ready. Trust me, you and I will witness the end. He tells her to flee, and though she hates it, Alara can't argue. Alaric steps up, charging a fire spell in his palm. The beast roars that mere mortals are just begging for a painful death. Trust me, Alaric is about to show this beast why he's no ordinary knight. Watch this. His steel hits something hard, but it's not flesh. Out of nowhere, a strange wall stands between them. A shimmering magic shield. Without his fire spell, Alaric is wide open and forced to change his strategy. He falls back on pure swordplay. With insane speed, he rains down a flurry of steel on the beast. The monster is fading. It has 800 health points left. We're at the finish line, but it's not over. It lets out a massive shockwave, blasting Alaric back. Suddenly, Lady Alara lunges forward to deliver the final blow. She wants the glory for her house. Alaric screams for her to stop, but she's already committed to the strike. Her blade bites into the monster, but does 0 damage. She freezes as her beautiful sword begins to shatter. Broken, she's wide open, weaponless, and looking death right in the eye. This wasn't supposed to happen at all. The boss raises its sword to end Alara. Alaric pushes his body to the absolute limit to reach her. He can't let her die here. If she falls, the whole mission goes up in smoke right now. Now pay attention, because what happens next is something you and I have never seen in this world. Time stands still. Alaric feels a strange, agonizing surge ripping through every single cell in his physical body. Electricity crackles under his skin. Right at the breaking point of the fight, something in the system just snaps. Warning, critical overload. A massive anomaly is occurring. His equipment is failing under the pressure of his raw will. His mind is sinking too deep. He's way past the safety limits of the magical simulation now. He's broken the cap. His virtual knight is suddenly glowing with a power the game shouldn't even allow. Overclocked, desperation just triggered the impossible. Suddenly, the monster's speed is a joke to him. He's too fast. He parries the boss's massive blade with a casual flick. The impossible has happened right before our very eyes. Alaric saves Alara, leaving her speechless. Even the boss is stunned. How did a human move that fast? The beast can't wrap its head around it. Alaric doesn't waste a second trying to explain the magic. He gets close and triggers the abyssal bond. Ghostly chains erupt, wrapping the monster in a suffocating, dark grip. The armor collapses, hollow, dead. His team just stands there, trying to process the absolute insanity they witnessed. Alaric stays quiet, reflecting on that overclock. It's a forbidden power that shouldn't exist in this world. You and I need to realize the stakes here. Overclocking was banned because it literally kills the player. Alaric triggered it by accident. Even the dying boss wonders what price he paid for that terrifying burst of strength. If he dies here, he dies in the real world. But after everything he's been through, he's not afraid anymore. He remembers his past life, being cast out of House Sterling like a dog, the betrayal that fueled his fire. He gave them everything and was treated like garbage. It broke him once, but he's not that man anymore. He's starting over. Risking death is just the cost of doing business. With one final strike, he ends it. The beast falls. A massive, gilded chest appears as the dungeon's exit portal begins to glow in the darkness. Outside, word spreads. The Shadow Crypt has been cleared. Nobody thought any house could beat this challenge yet. Everyone assumed the Iron Duke's Legion would be first. They have no idea who these wandering blades really are. That arrogant noble is fuming. He demands to know Sir Thorn's progress. They're still stuck at the very beginning. His elite squad died so much they almost reset to level 0. This makes the young lord lose his mind. He's surrounded by idiots. That's all he sees. He can't handle being outperformed by a bunch of literal nobodies. After that nightmare, Alaric hits level 7. The system announces his victory to the entire kingdom. He's done it. In seconds, they'll be warped out, facing a crowd that never expected these underdogs to actually survive. His team is still in shock. For most of that fight, winning felt like a distant, impossible dream to them. But now, it's time to celebrate. This win is going to put their names in the history books forever. The young knightess runs up to her leader, beaming. They were the first ones to ever conquer the crypt. As they stand there, Lady Alara realizes one thing. Alaric isn't just a knight. He's something far more terrifying. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what's inside. Alara is. All right, you and I are about to see if our hero gets the spoils he rightfully earned. Lady Snow didn't hesitate. Since Fang struck the final blow, the legendary loot chest was his to open. Inside sat a fortune in steel, a gleaming knight's sword and a shield pulsing with heavy runic magic. Snow knew noble houses would pay a king's ransom for gear this rare. The atmosphere turned instantly electric. One knight gasped, valuing the set at 80 silver coins. His friend whispered they should keep it all. Turning to Fang, Snow offered him first pick of any treasure, but our protagonist seemed strangely hesitant here. She worried the high-tier relics weren't good enough for him, but Fang had something very specific in mind. He ignored the gold. The only thing he wanted was the ash blade, a shattered, rusted hunk of junk. The arrogant blonde mage laughed. Why choose a cursed scrap pile that no sane warrior would ever touch? Feeling for him, Snow offered the master blueprints too. She was clearly trying to win his lasting favor. Fang wasn't naive. He asked straight up why she was being so generous. Finally, she dropped the act. The truth was simple. She wanted a warrior of his caliber to join her legendary guild, Ouroboros, immediately. For a second, it looked like a deal. Snow was thrilled, imagining her house becoming the kingdom's strongest. Then the hammer dropped. Fang calmly declined the offer, leaving her blonde subordinate absolutely fuming with rage. His reason was simple but ironclad. He already had his own brothers in arms and wouldn't leave them behind. Snow didn't care. She told him his entire squad could join. She was desperate to recruit them all. Fang told her to ask them herself. Blackie just chuckled, honored but determined to grow beside his friend. Together, they made a vow. One day, Zero Wing would be the greatest name in the entire realm. Realizing she couldn't break their bond, Snow backed off gracefully, hoping for another chance to fight alongside them. With the treasure split, the ancient exit portal finally flickered to life inside the dark dungeon's depths. It was time to leave. Their victory was complete, and the loot was secured as they stepped out. Each survivor earned 10 reputation points in White River City, a feat broadcasted to every soul in the kingdom. But outside, a trap was waiting. A massive crowd of rival mercenaries stood there, led by a smug, menacing clown. The villain glared at Fang, promising they'd meet again soon. His own house had failed where Fang succeeded. Snow mocked them. Maybe if they stopped hunting players and started training, they wouldn't be such failures. The tension was thick. Snow knew these vultures usually stole their gear through blood rather than hard work. The enemy didn't care about honor. They had the numbers, and they wanted the spoils of the dungeon. The leader barked an ultimatum. Hand over half the loot right now, or face an all-out bloodbath here. A lackey urged them to strike while the heroes were exhausted, but their leader had a different target. Now pay attention, because the real target wasn't the gold. It was Fang's very life. Watch. They wanted everything he owned. Fang told Snow to lead her people into the forest to avoid being surrounded. The villain sneered, blocking the path. He wasn't going to let them slip away into the trees so easily. Surprisingly, Fang walked forward calmly. He asked if the coward's goal was really just to steal his gear. He dared him to try. If he was strong enough to take it, he was welcome to try. That broke the villain's ego. Out here, far from the city guards, there was nobody left to save them. The coward ordered his men to charge. They swarmed forward like hungry wolves, weapons drawn for the kill. Blackie was ready for the chaos. He gripped his new staff, eager to test its true destructive power. You and I both know these thugs messed with the wrong squad. Let's see them regret it. Snow drew her blade. Anyone trying to rob her house would pay a price in blood and steel. The trash-tier mob ignored her, charging Fang like they were the stars of some grand epic. Big mistake. The first sword swung and missed. Fang countered instantly, his blade moving like a flash of silver light. The villain's eyes went wide. Fang was moving way faster than any man should. Panic started to set in. Fang barked orders again. Go to the forest. Snow didn't argue this time. She led the retreat immediately. Suddenly, a fireball roared toward them. But Fang's shield warrior was ready, bracing with his new runic armor. He blocked it without breaking a sweat. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. All right, you and I are jumping right into the heat of battle, where our team is desperately missing their main tank. His defense was terrifyingly high. Losing her cool, Lady Seraphina decided it was time to turn these fools into piles of ash. A massive fireball surged toward the cowards. The resulting explosion was a total disaster that Lord Barrett never saw coming. It happened too fast. Barrett tried rallying his men, screaming about their superior numbers and demanding they reorganize their line. He ordered a hit on the healers first. Seraphina just laughed, calling them reckless idiots who were about to pay the price. She unleashed another wave of flames. Those caught in the blast had absolutely no way to defend themselves against her raw power. Barrett started panicking. Even his toughest knight had been wiped out. Seraphina just looked down on them with pure contempt. She called them rats who didn't know their place. Terrified by her magic, Barrett desperately signaled his hidden assassins to strike. The order was simple: kill the fire mage now. At the same time, he screamed for Arthur's head on a platter. They scanned the field, but their target was gone. Arthur had vanished the second the fighting actually started. He went invisible instantly. Barrett barked orders to find him, since Arthur was the entire reason this bloody war even began. Meanwhile, Seraphina kept incinerating the fodder. Her only regret was that there were so many of these annoying cockroaches to crush. But watch out, a few shadows were creeping up behind her. Those assassins were dying for the chance to take her down. Sensing the ambush, her rage peaked. She was ready to end them for good, but there was one massive problem for her. Her spells were still on cooldown. She was wide open. Just as they lunged, a silver flash cut through the dark air. It was a single, perfect strike. Both assassins watched their health bar vanish. They died without ever seeing who actually hit them. Arthur had saved her. Seraphina smiled, turning to thank her mysterious ally, but the man had already disappeared back into the shadows. He was already gone, hunting elsewhere. Seeing him work made her realize he was even more terrifyingly strong than she first imagined. The enemy priests were busy reviving fallen knights. Suddenly, one had his throat opened before he could even blink. Arthur was a ghost. Another priest finally noticed the carnage, but he was already in the crosshairs. Arthur's blade silenced him instantly. Barrett looked back and froze. He realized his entire support line had just been completely wiped out. With no healers left, Barrett lost it. He charged Arthur with a roar, activating his most brutal signature skill, the Raging Bull. He was right on top of him, ready to deliver a killing blow. It looked like Arthur was finally caught off guard. But get this, Barrett's blade only sliced through empty air. It was an afterimage. The real Arthur was standing right behind him. Barrett spun around, fuming. He screamed that Arthur was nothing but a coward using cheap tricks and illusions to stay alive. He challenged Arthur to fight like a real man. This time, his heavy blade was stopped cold by a single, casual parry. The realization hit him. He wasn't even a threat. Arthur told him his swings were so weak they weren't even worth dodging. With a casual kick to the gut, Arthur sent him stumbling back. Barrett gasped for air, struggling to even stay on his feet. Before he could breathe, Arthur was behind him. A flurry of steel followed. Barrett was completely overwhelmed by the sheer speed of it. His body hit the dirt hard. Arthur stood victorious as the dying lord tried to mumble some pathetic threat about his house's honor. He swore he'd never forget this humiliation. But with their leader down, the battle was effectively over for the Iron Vanguard. His soldiers were lost. Without orders, they just stood there confused. Finally, one of the smarter knights realized the fight was lost. Their boss was dead. If they stayed, they were next. As they ran, they screamed that this wasn't the end of the story. Up on the cliffs, observers watched the rout. It was clear the Iron Vanguard's fall began the moment they dared to provoke Arthur. With the threat gone, Arthur prepared to take his leave. He offered a short nod as a goodbye, ready for his next journey. Seraphina watched him go, knowing how vital an asset he'd be for her house. He was truly in a league of his own. He was an elite warrior who would eventually become a rival. She just hoped that confrontation was a long, long way away. News of the Iron Vanguard's crushing defeat spread like wildfire. Magic recordings of the fight were being shared in every tavern and square. It was the only thing anyone talked about. Lady Seraphina's reputation reached new heights after her legendary performance on the battlefield that day. With her influence soaring, soldiers flocked to join her, but the High Lords were also starting to take notice. Everyone was talking about Arthur. His fame was exploding, some worshipped his skill, while others were absolutely terrified. A few had even fallen desperately in love with the mysterious rogue. One knight mentioned to Alistair that fighting with Arthur must be amazing. Alistair nodded in agreement, though he admitted it was also the most dangerous thing he had ever done in his entire life. The tank boasted about his new defensive skills. Finally, Alistair wouldn't have to play protector and could focus on dealing some real damage. And that's where we leave it. Arthur promised Silas and Caleb new gear before telling them to fix up their broken armor. All right, you and I are about to watch Alistair venture off on a mysterious solo mission. The team immediately heads to the local forge, where the blacksmith begins calculating the cost of heavy repairs. The massive price tag in silver coins worries them, but fixing such battered gear is never a cheap task. Despite the steep cost, they pay up, nearly draining their entire reward from the harrowing depths of the dungeon. Barnaby mentions their rising reputation in the village, hoping it might earn them a much-needed break on the bill. The blacksmith grumbles that the discount was already applied and tells them to be more grateful for his work. It remains painfully expensive, but with broken steel, the party has absolutely no other choice but to pay. Meanwhile, Alistair checks his inventory, finding nearly 80 gold coins saved from his past battles. He recalls the Ash Blade, a legendary sword once held by a godslayer, a mythic weapon from his past. Its true secrets are locked until he reaches the lunar tier, so for now, he keeps it hidden away. Digging through his loot, he finds a strange item dropped by the defeated Lord Leo. It is a rare teleportation stone, capable of whisking him to the legendary city of 𝒆𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 4 times. Alistair realizes this was the secret advantage that fueled the Iron Legion's meteoric rise in his previous life. With this treasure in his hands, Lord Leo and his knights will find their progress suddenly halted. Now pay attention. Alistair teleports directly to 𝒆𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 for a legendary event. He orders Barnaby and the others to grind at the level 8 fields while he handles business elsewhere. Deep in the slums of Oakhaven, Lord Leo enters a derelict tavern to hire a deadly, high-priced assassin. The assassin is silent, but when a subordinate speaks out of turn, his throat is slit instantly. Shocking the leader, the killer demands 10 gold coins for the hit. Leo claims the target is uniquely powerful, which finally sparks the cold killer's dark curiosity. Eager for a challenge, the assassin demands to know the name of this player. Alistair teleports directly into a shadowy alleyway within the massive, stone walls of Raven's Reach. This city hosts the realm's most famous auction, and arriving early gives him time to scout around. He pulls a mask from his bag and puts it on for a disguise. Using an alias, he visits an engineering workshop to see what high-tier gadgets are for sale. He finds the first shop in minutes, but leaves even faster than he arrived. Most items are too pricey, but he snags some ice grenades for a quick, frozen escape. These will be perfect if the Iron Legion ever manages to track him down here. While walking, he bumps into a noble player who mistakenly treats him like a common commoner. The stranger soon realizes Alistair is a level 7 solo player with no guild affiliation. You saw that too, right? This neutral city is a melting pot for powerhouses from everywhere. The arrogant player scoffs that this rookie must have found the city by luck. Alistair turns his back and walks away, leaving the man fuming at being ignored. When the man shouts threats, Alistair stops and calmly asks him what he plans to do. A knight named Seraphina steps in to stop the fight before it can even start. The angry player backs down only because of Seraphina's presence and her high rank. She introduces herself as a member of the Moon Temple, a legendary guild from the Roseate Empire. Alistair offers a fake name, introducing himself only as Nightshade. They assume he traveled from afar specifically to attend the grand auction taking place today. Entry requires a special emblem costing 2 gold coins, a steep price for any normal traveler. Alistair plays dumb to keep a low profile despite his wealth. Seraphina offers him a spare emblem, which only makes her arrogant companion even angrier. He warns her not to regret bringing a nameless stranger into their elite group. Seraphina insists that anyone who reached this city alone is worth knowing. So what do you and I take from this? A friend or a foe? Stick with me. You're about to see a masterclass in how to ruin a rival's life at the royal auction. Arthur's calm attitude stunned them. They guessed he was incredibly wealthy to not even care about a few gold crowns. As he walked away, that annoying noble kept trying to pester him. Arthur ignored it and headed for the exchange house. The gates opened and everyone rushed inside, but a guard blocked the way, stopping the commoners from entering the hall. Commoners had to wait for the more important noble lords to go in first. He pointed to a high slayer. This man could enter even without a pass. Looking closely, the crowd realized it was the legendary Lord Cinder himself. The guard bowed with deep respect. The 2 nobles never imagined he was a high-ranking knight of the kingdom. Inside the grand hall, the crowd organized as the auctioneer slammed his gavel to start the day's bidding war. First up was level 20 knight armor for 2 sovereigns. Arthur used his hidden sight to check its secret stats. He needed to identify the real treasures hidden in this pile. One bidder noted the item hadn't been appraised yet. Now watch closely. Arthur is about to set the perfect trap by placing a very deliberate bid on the item. Since he was a famous slayer, everyone assumed the item was rare. His rival was stunned by Arthur's sudden generosity. Thinking he could win, the noble raised the bid to 5 gold coins. Others whispered about his massive family fortune. Lord Cinder countered with 10 sovereigns, sparking a massive discussion among the bidders. This was becoming a very heated contest. This fight was definitely going to get intense. The competition grew much more fierce as the crowd watched the rivals. Desperate to humiliate his enemy, the young man raised his bid again. He was determined not to let Arthur win. Cinder pushed the price to 20 gold crowns. This only made the noble more furious at being outdone in public. His friend warned him that the price was already insane for such gear, but he was too stubborn to stop. To regain his lost pride, he bid 30 sovereigns. He was even willing to use his house's emergency funds for this item. That amount was way over the budget of most players. It showed he was desperate to win at any cost. He started bragging about belonging to a top-tier noble house and shouted that money was never an issue for them. Calmly, Lord Cinder raised the bid to 35 gold. The crowd started to panic. How could a commoner have this? Turning to the auctioneer, the noble demanded an immediate audit. He was sure Cinder didn't actually have the money. However, the official confirmed the bid was valid. Since his pride was being attacked, Arthur asked where the house's wealth was. That remark pushed him into a total rage. He bid 36 sovereigns, using gold he hadn't even received yet. Cinder just taunted him, mocking that a tiny 1-coin increase was pathetic. He hiked the price up to 40 gold. That was several years of the noble's personal allowance. It seemed impossible for anyone to be this invested in armor. He convinced himself the gear must be legendary. Blinded by the trap, he raised his bid to 50 gold crowns. He had clearly lost his mind. That was his house's entire budget. Lord Cinder just clapped and announced his defeat. The nobles sneered, asking if the wealthy Cinder was scared to bid more. He thought his money had finally won. Arthur announced his defeat. The nobles sneered, asking if the wealthy Cinder was too scared to bid any more gold. You and I both know what's coming next. He just realized he bought a piece of trash armor. With no more bids, the auctioneer shouted sold. The young man cheered, thinking he'd finally won the ultimate prize. Then he saw the truth. It was just common armor worth 1 silver shilling. Stylish, but totally worthless in battle. He had no idea how to explain this disaster to his house. Failing to pay would bring severe system penalties. People whispered that the Knight Protector was terrifyingly cunning. They warned others to never fall for his deceptive traps. Arthur stayed quiet until the next category appeared. A weapon forging blueprint went up, starting at just 1 silver shilling. Analyzing the scroll, he realized luck was on his side. It was a legendary Silver Dawn blueprint from his memories. He needed 10 of these secret silver items to evolve his blade. He calmly placed a bid of 1 shilling. The other players froze, terrified it was another trap. They were too scared to place a single bid against him. Arthur waited for the hammer to fall. Luck was finally on his side as the room stayed completely silent. He knew these items were the key to his future power. No one else realized the true value of the blueprint. He needed these materials for his abyssal blade to reach its final form. This was a massive win for just a few shillings. And that's where we leave it. Arthur just won the real prize for pennies. Trust me, he's just getting started. The crowd remained hesitant, and no other bids came through. Arthur had won the most important item of the night. All eyes on the prize. Stick with me because Alaric is about to pull off the ultimate auction heist. The countdown begins. The other nobles refuse to be fooled again, so the gavel falls at just 1 silver coin. Then the bombshell hits. It was a secret silver blade blueprint. The room freezes in soul-crushing despair as they realize their mistake. That item was worth 20 gold pieces. Alaric, known as Blackthorn, just scored a massive win while everyone else stayed silent. Now for the main event, a legendary combat skill called Thunder Flame Burst. The starting bid, 5 gold coins. In his past life, Alaric had never even seen this tome. Its power, beyond any simple measurement of gold and silver in this world. The price skyrockets to 42 gold in seconds. Everyone knows its worth, so Alaric waits for the perfect moment to strike. Now pay attention here. The bid hits 50 gold, and things are about to get very tricky for our hero. A wealthy non-player character jumps in. Alaric senses his deep pockets immediately. You cannot trick these wealthy programmed characters. He has to pay market value. With his funds running low, he prays 60 gold coins will be a fair winning offer. But a mage counters with 70. Realizing he is short on coin, Alaric frantically checks his options to stay in the game. Suddenly, an item sells, giving him 113 gold total. He realized he finally has enough resources to strike back. He bids 100 gold. The entire hall goes silent. Nobody can believe a single player is throwing around that kind of fortune. Going once, twice. The auctioneer scans the room, but the other players are too stunned to even make a sound. They are still fuming over this mysterious demon hunter ruining their plans. The tension in the air is thick and heavy. Sold for 100 gold. Alaric takes the book, knowing this skill will make him unstoppable in the early stages of war. It is a devastating stun move that lasts 4 seconds while raining down fire and lightning. Pure power in his hands. The auction closes and the crowd disperses. But as Alaric heads for the exit, a familiar voice calls out his name. It is Lady Alara Rose, a legendary conjurer from his past life, famous across the entire kingdom for her immense power. He never expected to cross paths with her this early. She explains that she missed him because he sat in VIP. Since he was in the nobles section, she missed him earlier. Trust me, this is where the real business begins. As a leader of Silver Echo, she wants to discuss a partnership. Alaric knows their massive influence in the trade world. This is a huge opportunity, so he agrees to listen. She suggests moving to a more comfortable spot to talk freely. They head to a tavern. She is stunned by how young and handsome he really is. She expected an eccentric old man, not Alaric. He skips the small talk and asks her to get to the point. Using her perception, she realizes he is world-class. She admits he is quite the legend for a blacksmith in the Crownlands. Cutting through the chatter, Alaric demands to know her proposal. He is always happy to expand his elite network of allies. Silver Echo needs 500 sets of Sunfire armor. The catch, they can only pay in Imperial credits for now. Gold is scarce, so they offer installments. Normally, Alaric would refuse, but he knows credits will be valuable very soon. He asks why the sudden credit payment. She explains they cannot exchange for gold easily due to the kingdom's recent shortage. They can only pay in chunks. Honestly, getting credits is perfect for Alaric, but he warns her his prices are steep. They need 500 sets today and more later. But there is a condition. He cannot sell this gear to anyone else. Alaric sees through it. She wants a monopoly to resell his items. He demands gold up front and the rest in credits. Her network is huge, but he has his own terms. Since her guild controls the mines, he wants a massive discount. He needs cheap minerals to keep his forge running. Ore is more valuable to him than any stack of gold coins. He also requests a royal pass to the Shadow Citadel. She agrees, knowing his skill is worth every single concession she makes. The minerals are his at a discount, and the pass is ready. With that settled, Alaric knows the deal is finally done. They clink glasses, sealing a pact that will shake the realm. Alaric heads to a rented manor to start the work. He tells her the designs will take 2 hours. It is a lucrative deal since his profit is guaranteed, no matter what. As time passes, the workshop door finally creaks open. Alaric apologizes for keeping the noble lady waiting in the cold hall. Designing that many blueprints at once is soul-crushing. He opens the system, and they begin the massive digital exchange. Just like that, 18 million credits hit his account. He has become a multimillionaire in the blink of an eye. He is now one of the richest men in the realm. Soon he will build a forge to crush all his rivals. The Shadow Guild will not know what hit them. He has the funds to start a workshop that will dominate everything. And that is where we leave him. Trust me, you and I are going to love seeing what he builds next. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 shook hands on the deal, promising she wouldn't regret it. You and I are about to see him vanish. Back in Ravenwood, a royal decree swept through the capital, warning all travelers the realm would soon vanish for a short rest. The gates would shut for 2 hours. Everyone had 10 minutes to leave. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 found the timing suspicious. Changes like this normally took months, but he knew something they didn't. Market prices were about to explode. It was the ultimate chance to get rich. He sprinted toward the merchant hall to start trading immediately. He sorted his gear instantly, buying up every resource in sight to prepare for the coming gold rush. Before the world went dark, his bags were overflowing. He was ready for the prices to hit the ceiling. With his loot secured, he finally disconnected. Back in the mortal world, 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 pulled off his ethylink. He felt a massive weight lift. Then, the news broke. The high noble houses were officially moving into the realm. Shops selling mana crystals were swarmed instantly. The divine realm just hit a massive record of 18 billion active spirits. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 saw the bigger picture now. This influx of souls was changing everything they knew about the world. Great Knight orders were already hoarding gear for the recruits. This wasn't just a trial anymore, it was a new reality. The Great Awakening of the realm arrived perfectly. This world didn't just exist, it was actually evolving on its own. It didn't need gods to fix it. The realm grew based purely on the actions and struggles of the people within. Now watch closely. This is where the world starts playing by much deadlier rules. Survival was the only law. As the mystery deepens, the danger skyrockets. This is the grand evolution, and 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅's achievements triggered a huge part of it. Knowing he was the catalyst, he focused on sharpening his physical body even more in the waking world. The great houses were hunting for talent, hiring world-class athletes and legendary warriors to join their ranks. With massive backing teams behind them, the pressure on lone wolves and commoners became absolutely crushing. To keep up, 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 downed a rare vitality elixir. He had already burned through several of these expensive potions. Stepping out into the city, the hype was unavoidable. The divine realm was the only thing people talked about. Banners hung everywhere, and commoners were buzzing about finding enough gear to survive their first day inside. Those with connections were already ahead. Meanwhile, the royal merchants were dropping massive coin to build their armies. They offered million sovereign contracts to the best. Even the famous Lady Seraphina was making a fortune in endorsements. You and I both know she's a legend, but 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 is playing a different game entirely. He headed toward the merchant quarter. He needed a superior ether link to stay connected. The shopkeeper looked him over, doubting his coin. The saleswoman assumed he was broke, pointing him toward the elite mana watches while warning they were far too expensive for commoners and meant only for high lords. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 didn't blink. He made it clear that gold wasn't an issue. After buying the artifact, he left as the woman bowed. She realized that despite his simple clothes, he was likely a hidden high lord in disguise. On his walk home, the watch chimed with a magical bird. It was the Academy representative calling him. She reminded him of the grand gala this Friday. He promised to be there, but she wasn't finished yet. There was a mandatory entry fee of 5,000 sovereigns. Since he was a poor student, she hesitated. She offered to petition the elders for a waiver. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 just shrugged and told her not to bother. He had already paid the full amount. She was stunned. Where did a commoner find that kind of wealth? He claimed he just got lucky in the realm. She was floored, finally noticing his high-tier mana watch. He asked if she'd join him, but her noble parents had forbidden her from entering the spirit world. Between her duties and her family, she had no time. Still, she was genuinely thrilled for his success. She told him not to be late and cut the connection. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 felt like she left in a hurry. Suddenly, his wrist flared with light. The realm was back online, and it was time to dive back in. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅 re-entered the divine realm instantly. Everything felt sharper and much more real than before. The laws of the world changed completely. Now, sprinting and blinking used physical stamina instead of just raw mana reserves. If he pushed too hard, he'd collapse from exhaustion. Only a long rest at an inn could fix it. Standard warriors started with 100 points, but for experts, their agility determined their true endurance. 𝒆𝒈𝒂𝒚𝒆𝒅's heavy focus on agility was finally paying off big time. He could outlast anyone on the battlefield. Trust me, we've only just scratched the surface of how this update changes everything. If his concentration broke, his spells would simply fail. Let's dive into a world where mana management is everything for our hero, Caspian, to cast spells. Since he lacked mental focus, his mana pool was tiny. Then he noticed a scroll from the interface. It was sent by the woman who broke his curse, making him suspect a trap within the envelope. His gut told him to burn it immediately, but ignoring a high priestess leads to even worse consequences. Opening the seal, a blinding light erupted, revealing the Holy Cross, a relic that shreds the undead and rot. This was a legendary divine artifact, making him realize that maybe Alara wasn't so wicked after all. As he made his way forward, someone suddenly asked him to stop for a moment, wanting him for a job. This guy always paid others to help him rank up, and he wanted Caspian's help for his mission. Seeing Caspian's masterwork armor, the brat made an offer, hoping to use his gold to buy a victory. Caspian asked about the pay, and the man boasted 200 gold coins for every single rank gained. Disgusted by the peanuts, Caspian simply turned his back, stating he had no interest in such small change. The rejection made the player furious, assuming Caspian was just some peasant who lived on scraps in reality. Throwing a rock, he screamed that other peasants would beg on their knees for a chance just like this. Now pay attention. The interface instantly flagged the attack as a high-profile assassination attempt against a noble. Caspian's aura shifted instantly, turning so cold and oppressive that everyone around him started to feel genuine fear. Bystanders whispered in horror, realizing the fool was incredibly ignorant for attacking a high-ranking lord like Caspian. The royal guard arrived within seconds, detecting a commoner attacking a noble and beginning his immediate execution. The attacker's pathetic excuses fell on deaf ears, and Caspian simply walked away, thanking the knights for service. It was finally time to find the blue ice soul flame, a legendary treasure hidden deep in the forest. In his past life, this flame appeared within the Forest of Souls, increasing success rates for his craft. Leaving the safe zone, he activated his gravity ring, burning through his stamina to move like a gale. He pushed himself to use the artifact consecutively, looking down to see the fields were already stained red. There was a clear indication the world became much harder, even while he was still soaring in the air. His stamina bar was nearly depleted, but Caspian was satisfied with the massive distance he had just covered. Soon, he was surprised by 2 knights fleeing something, hoping to use him as a simple distraction instead. They kept running, hoping the shadow wolves would shift focus to Caspian and tear him apart in seconds. The pack closed in fast on his position, and the 2 cowards were certain he wouldn't stand a chance. Cautiously, Caspian pulled a frost grenade from his satchel, tossing it right at the center of the creatures. He wiped them all out instantly, leaving the newcomers stunned as Caspian realized his stamina had finally recovered. You saw that, right? He suddenly vanished before their eyes, soaring away from the ground in total silence. They stared in disbelief, amazed that he could fly, even considering restarting their entire journey as new swordsmen. Finally, Caspian stepped into the Forest of Souls, a cursed place where the sun never dares to shine. No life remained there, only restless spirits, and the path he followed led straight to the forest's heart. In his past life, the king's elite guards coveted this flame, sending 1,000 members into the dark woods. Thousands perished altogether, and the final losses were even greater. 700 brave men died right here. That was a high price for the item, as physical attacks were completely useless against the cursed spirits. However, that didn't mean there weren't ways to fight effectively with the artifact he received as a gift. Navigating the forest was easier than expected, until he sensed a murderous intent approaching from the dark shadows. Sensing the sneak attack, he summoned his defensive blades to shield himself from the sudden lethal strike. The protective barrier prevents a disaster, and now with his sword in hand, he tries to counterattack. Unfortunately, the assassin vanishes into the dark, which is the perfect environment for a killer to operate safely. He was lucky to react in time, because being stunned here would lead to a very painful death. The killer approaches again, announcing he's there for Caspian's head before moving with incredible speed to finish him. Caspian launches his swords at the target, piercing the chest completely, only to realize it was a clone. Trust me, he's in trouble. The real killer is already behind him, landing a lethal strike on his neck. Stick with me, you are about to see a killer find out the hard way that his prey is actually a predator. He claims to be Heaven's will, wanting Alistair to know who took his life. But the Shadow Hunter is stunned to see Alistair can play the same game with clones of his own. Now that the true body is out in the open, the tables have turned. Alistair knows he has the upper hand, since assassins are way more fragile than mages once they lose their cover. The assassin lunges again, but Alistair's chains snap shut around him instantly. He can't believe he was spotted this fast. Identifying a simple clone was light work for someone with Alistair's elite senses. He mocks the killer, saying his technique is amateur compared to his own. Surprisingly, this just fires the assassin up even more. He loves a challenge against a superior foe, and warns Alistair not to count him out yet. With a surge of power, he actually shatters the heavy chains. Alistair hasn't seen a fighter with this much raw skill before. The attacker is pure confidence, convinced nothing can stop him from finishing the job. Alistair thinks a frontal clash is suicide for an assassin as he parries the first strike with his twin blades. But something is wrong. This guy is trading blows like a seasoned knight, which is unexpected, but actually pretty exciting for Alistair. It's his first real, heart-pounding battle in a long time. He unleashes a gale of wind blades to push the killer back. The assassin is impressed by the sheer speed of the counterattacks. That last hit really packed a punch. It sends him flying backward. Alistair then uses his gravity ring to soar into the air. Now pay attention. The assassin is completely baffled as Alistair prepares to unleash a massive spell. He channels a thunder flame explosion, a high-tier skill he won at the Great Auction, and fires it straight down. The killer activates his shadow cloak, a rare gear that cuts elemental damage by 95%. The impact is absolute chaos. Debris flies everywhere, and though the damage was halved, the assassin is barely hanging on. Even with his best defense, he's taken a massive hit. He realizes Alistair is way too strong for a fair fight. Alistair notes that this guy actually knows how to use his kit effectively in a real brawl. Seeing the writing on the wall, the assassin tries to vanish and make a run for it. Alistair charges in to stop him, but the killer just smirks, claiming he still has one last ace up his sleeve. Alistair pushes his body into overdrive. The assassin thinks he is safe, but suddenly, a rain of swords descends. They crash into the earth, obliterating the terrain. The forest floor is littered with blades, but the target is gone. Wait, one sword actually hit home. The assassin is bleeding out with almost 0 health left. He tries to speak, but Alistair isn't in a talking mood. He grabs the killer's face and slams him into the dirt. Despite the chaos, Alistair feels a strange sense of satisfaction from such a close fight. He tells the man to value his life and offers mercy if he names the noble house that hired him. The assassin refuses, but says he truly enjoyed the dance. While others hate Alistair, this guy just lives for the thrill. I know what you're thinking, is it over? Not quite. He asks Alistair if they should just die together. That is when Alistair spots the explosive core in the killer's hand. He definitely didn't see this coming. A massive blast levels the forest. In this state, a player dying here means dying in the real world too. That is the risk Alistair took, but as the smoke clears, he is still standing. He takes a shaky breath. He survived by a hair. Unfortunately, his Holy Cross talisman was shattered in the process. This enchanted item saves the user from a fatal blow in cursed zones, leaving them with exactly 1 health point. It is destroyed now. Alistair wonders if the priestess knew this would happen, or if it was just a lucky coincidence. In his past life, this assassin never hunted him. It seems Alistair is becoming way too famous for his own good. Now he has fresh problems. The monsters in these woods are just as lethal as that crazy killer. He needs to move fast. Using his gravity magic, Alistair launches himself above the tree line to escape. He finally spots it, the cursed ghost village. But the moment he enters, he is surrounded. Hostile ghouls crawl from the shadows, glaring at him with pure hunger. These things are 8 levels higher than him. Usually, a group of these would wipe out a whole squad of knights. He pulls out a frost grenade and hurls it with perfect precision. It works like a charm. The creatures are frozen solid and their health bars tank instantly. But one grenade isn't enough to finish the job. As the ice cracks, you and I are about to see if he can survive the next wave. Let's dive in, because you and I are about to watch Arthur turn into an absolute experience farming legend. Arthur realized he could lure these undead monsters into a trap and grind levels in this area perfectly. By using explosive potions, he could bypass direct combat. Then, he came up with a truly brilliant plan. He equipped the Slayer of Shadows title, boosting his damage while weakening the attributes of every dark creature. Arthur threw a flash freeze grenade, and the effect was devastating. The monsters were instantly locked in place. His damage output spiked. Seeing the numbers rise, Arthur felt a rush of pure excitement for the hunt. He was determined to seize this chance. Within 30 minutes, he had already climbed his way to level 9. His skills were leveling up too, pushing him further. But then, he noticed something strange. The ghouls fled. Why were they running? Suddenly, a notification popped up. Arthur had just unlocked a powerful hidden achievement. He was now the nightmare of ghouls, scaring off every monster within a 20-meter radius of his presence. That didn't stop him. His real goal was the azure soul fire hidden deep within the square's central fountain. There it was. As Arthur reached out to claim the legendary fire, the entire ground began to tremble. He looked back and froze. A massive silhouette was approaching. It was the Revenant Monarch, a level 15 boss. The boss had finally arrived. In his past life, this monster was a literal death sentence for most players. One blow was fatal, shattering heavy armor instantly. Now, watch closely, because this is where it gets crazy. Surviving was only possible if you had insane agility to dodge every strike. Arthur began calculating his next move. But then, a cold chill ran down his spine. He turned around and met a pair of glowing eyes. Another nightmare had appeared, the Night of Ruin. This was bad, like really, really bad for our hero. This boss was notorious in his past life for slaughtering hundreds of elite players with absolutely zero mercy. Arthur was trapped. The system had spawned 2 bosses at once, a completely impossible, deadly crossroads for him. Was this a glitch, or was the game targeting him? Either way, things were finally starting to get interesting. Arthur prepared to take them both on simultaneously. Suddenly, the Night of Ruin began channeling a terrifying energy. It vowed to bury Arthur in this forest, declaring itself the eternal enemy of everything that still breathes. The knight slammed its sword into the dirt, and instantly, a wave of undead corpses rose from the earth. As the horde multiplied, Arthur activated speed scrolls to seize the initiative. He had to move fast now. They were resistant to ice, but weak to steel. Arthur unleashed a barrage of slashes, shredding them instantly. The path to the knight was clear, but before he could strike, he felt something coming from the side. A surprise attack. Arthur barely dodged. You and I saw that coming, but his reaction was still insane. His evasion was perfect. If that hit had landed, his health bar would have vanished in a single second. The monsters swarmed him. Arthur kept dancing through the chaos, using his defensive blades to parry their strikes. The boss pulled back its massive cleaver, flinging Arthur away. He was sweating now. That was too close. That was the second narrow escape, and there's no time to breathe. He had to defend against the knight. Arthur struggled to parry the knight's heavy sword. This battle was becoming a true test of his limits. The knight's strikes were getting heavier with every second. Arthur realized his guard was about to break. His sword was cracking under the pressure. Thinking fast, he activated his gravity release ability to create distance. Finally, he was out of range. Blocking those hits might save his life, but it would destroy his gear. His armor wouldn't survive another round of direct blocks. Knowing the knight was a melee fighter, he backed off. Distance was his only advantage. The knight was nearly indestructible and possessed insane physical resistance levels. His only chance, elemental damage. Arthur launched a thunderflame explosion directly at the knight's chest. But the other boss stepped in to block it. This monster was completely immune to fire and lightning. The attack did 0 damage. Worse, the fireball ricocheted, flying straight back at Arthur with double the power. Arthur manipulated gravity just in time to dodge his own spell. The Revenant Monarch's elemental resistance was insane. However, its physical defense was its weak point. There was a tiny opening when the boss stopped moving. That window only opened when it focused on defense. Finally, the moment Arthur was waiting for arrived. Arthur threw a hidden blade. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see this twist. All right, stick with me as Fang faces a defense, so tough it shatters his sword instantly. Forced to retreat, he ditches his broken blade and triggers high-performance mode for a massive power surge. Raw energy pulses through him, while the Wrath Knight closes in, ready to end this duel right now. Fang traps it with Abyssal Bind and tosses an ice grenade, but the secondary boss is already reacting. The beast triggers its elemental immunity to ice, making Fang's grenade look like a complete waste of time. After dodging a lethal strike, Fang counters with a thunderflame explosion, forcing the creature to switch its defenses. The monster shifts its immunity to block the blast, exactly as our hero planned from the very beginning. Suddenly, the fireball ricochets directly into the Wrath Knight, who can't move fast enough to escape the impact. As the flames clear, Fang's silhouette emerges from the smoke, ready to deliver a crushing blow to his enemy. He lands a heavy strike, but the knight's legendary defense reduces all physical damage by 95%. Fang stays locked in, knowing both monsters are preparing to crush him between their overwhelming strength and steel. Now pay attention here. The perfect opening he's been waiting for all along has finally arrived at last. He uses gravity release to redirect the enemy cleaver, stripping the knight of its physical defense in one move. Fang unleashes 9 Dragon Slash, dealing insane damage and leaving only one monster standing on the bloody battlefield. He hurls another ice grenade at the remaining boss, forcing it to burn its elemental immunity once again. Even with low health, the knight won't stop, charging toward Fang with a desperate and relentless fury. Thanks to his gravity control, Fang slips away while the boss gets caught in the massive ice explosion. You saw that, right? The knight's own attack accidentally strikes the other monster, delivering a fatal finishing blow. Now it's just one-on-one against a weakened beast that's clearly reaching its breaking point very soon. He knows exactly how to exploit these mechanics to secure a victory that seemed almost impossible before. He flings a heavy fallen cleaver at the monster, slicing a horn clean off its helmet with surgical precision. Fang drops from above like a hawk, closing the distance for a final strike without taking any risks. The system announces his hard-earned victory, showering him in a massive wave of experience for his incredible tactics. He's rewarded with 2 rare magical scrolls, one for pluming and another for brutality, to boost his power. Since he used the monster's own skills against them, the loot table shifted, giving him scrolls instead of gear. With the path finally clear, he reaches out to claim the legendary blue flame for his own collection. Meanwhile, the Martial Union has put a 10,000 gold coin bounty on his head across the entire kingdom. Most hunters won't touch the contract, even for double the gold, because they fear the legendary demon hunter. When he walks into the city, the whispers die down as everyone feels the heavy atmosphere around him. That wraps up our story for today, but make sure to stay tuned for the next epic chapter soon. You and I witnessed greatness. See you next time on Juicy Channel.